See our tears for our brother, our father, our husband, our fellow citizen, our senator.
I'm here to let him know that his life mattered to me.
John McCain believed in America.
Make no mistake, he fought like hell for the causes he believed in.
He represented our values all over the world as senator from Arizona, and America is stronger for his fierce defense of our values. We can be proud he was our senator.
We are grateful for his life and for his sacrifice. Gathered in this spot, we are especially grateful that John made Arizona his home.
Today, a final farewell for Senator John Sidney McCain III, his very last day here in Arizona. Thanks for being with us. I'm Dan Spindle. Over the next few hours, we will bring you live coverage of Senator McCain's final procession through Phoenix and his Arizona memorial service, where former Vice President Joe Biden will be speaking. Our own Steve Irvin and Kaylee O'Kelly are live outside the North Phoenix Baptist Church, where that memorial will be held. We also have crews spread out all along the procession route to that church, and we are just moments away from that procession beginning. Let's take a look right now at the procession route through Phoenix. Senator McCain's body will be transported by motorcade from the state capitol up the I-17, getting off at Camelback, and then going toward Central before finally finishing at North Phoenix Baptist Church. Everyone encouraged by the former vice president, in fact, to line that route for our senator's final goodbye. The procession expected to begin right around 9:15, the service itself beginning at 10 at the church, and that is where we find Steve Irvin and Kaylee O'Kelly.
Thank you so much, Dan. And this is a day to celebrate the life of one of Arizona's favorite sons. Some people say favorite adopted son,
yes,
but certainly he means more to Arizona than just about every other state.
We have Governor Doug Ducey with us right now, a man who, obviously a leader of our state, but someone quite close to Senator John McCain. And we know that you have some big decisions to make ahead. We'll get to that part of this in just a moment. But this is very personal to you and your wife, your entire family, obviously.
It is for us, but I think it is for all of Arizona. I mean, look at the outpouring of love and affection that
yes,
people in the state have for this man, the people that lined up for hours and hours yesterday in really hot weather,
yes,
to come in and salute and pay their respects and honor John McCain as he lie in state in the Arizona State Capitol. So I think everyone, whether they had a personal relationship or not, feel they knew this man, and they did, because he was the same person behind the scenes as he was in the well of the Senate.
You're the person who takes the baton of leadership in many respects for the next generation. What do you take from John McCain's life of service as you move forward?
Well, John McCain is irreplaceable in terms of the life and legacy that he led, but he was a role model, I think, for all of us. We went home and watched as a family, although everyone was tired. We watched For Whom the Bell Tolls again last night. And I just think this idea of serving a purpose higher than yourself, beyond your own self-interest, putting that before is something that John McCain showed us all. And he not only showed us it in the U.S. Senate, he showed us that in Vietnam and how he lived his entire life. And that's really an American value, an American ideal.
Do you see that inspiration leading to a spirit of cooperation in politics these days?
Well, I'll tell you, this week has certainly been, as much as I wish we were not celebrating his life and we had another decade with him, I think it's when you reflect on a life like this and you see the battles that he fought and some of the consequential issues and situations he was in, it says, we've got to find a way to work together as Americans.
Governor Ducey, thanks for taking the time.
We appreciate your time.
You
Take care of you and your family today, for sure.
Anytime we want to send it to Dan in the studio, Dan, we understand the procession is beginning on its way here to North Phoenix Baptist Church.
Yeah, guys, we're getting a live look right now of Senator John McCain's body being brought out, full honors in that flag-draped casket outside the state rotunda, the Capitol building there on the Capitol grounds. You just saw Cindy McCain, John McCain's wife, there. As they now lift this casket and bring it out, this is part of that procession, the beginnings of what will be this procession. The state capitol grounds. From there, they will go to the I-17 and then up to Camelback and over to Central. But again, Vice President Biden asking everyone to line this area and come on out if you would like to pay one last respect to Senator John McCain. Full salutes right now as we watch the senator make his way toward that hearse, this on the Capitol grounds. Family is gathered close by, of course, his sons who are in the military as well. They're in full dress for their military, one in the Marine Corps, one in the Navy. It's a somber moment as well as you see those gathered there to take pictures and take photos and just have remembrances of this final moment. We saw so many, upwards of 15,000 last evening gathered there on those grounds. They waited in the heat. In the afternoon hours, they waited to get that final moment. A lot of people sharing those on social media with us as well, and we appreciate that. Share at abc15.com to tell the story one last time, to say that final farewell to Senator McCain. There are those you can see with campaign signs as they wave flags as well. Let's take a moment just to kind of watch and experience this as well. We know the family members are there. It's an emotional time, and we again appreciate everyone joining us right now to experience what we are experiencing as the senator makes his way to the church. This is a view up from Air 15, the hearse there in front of the Capitol grounds. Let's bring in our John Treeweiler, who is out to cover this event as well. John, what are you seeing?
Yeah, Dan, we can tell you that as you just saw, the casket covered in the American flag has been placed into the hearse from our vantage point. The military guard now walking away. Very extensive motorcade out here to escort Senator John McCain's body away. And as you were mentioning, it's really impressive just to see the number of people that have showed up to watch this happen in person, holding McCain campaign signs. They are all over the Capitol complex grounds right now. The family is now walking away. Cindy McCain and her sons and the rest of the family, they are loading up into various vehicles that are trailing right behind the hearse. They've just shut the door to the hearse. They'll be hopping in. They'll be exiting here northbound on 17th Avenue. They'll be making their way to I-17. Then they'll be headed up towards Camelback, where they will head east, then again north on Central to the church. This all happening in a matter of minutes, very fast, very precise, down to the point. And this hearse again will be departing shortly. A very large number of DPS motorcycles, just like we saw yesterday, are leading this motorcade. There's probably about 20 DPS motorcycles at the front, as well as several black SUVs and several large black limousine-style buses that trail out this motorcade. As you can see live here, we'll pan over to that. Friends, family, special dignitaries are all a part of this motorcade that will be carrying Senator John McCain's body to North Phoenix Baptist Church. And we are expecting them to depart any minute now. So the mood here, very kind of quiet, very kind of somber. We see some people standing in the audience with their hands over their heart. Now, obviously, we've seen the DPS troopers salute that casket of the late senator, and just a lot of people out here. Here we go. This now motorcade will start to move. The salute is up, and looks like they are going to move down 17th Avenue northbound here, and there they go. This motorcade will now take off, and they will work their way to North Phoenix Baptist Church for the funeral service here in Phoenix of Senator John McCain. Dan, once again, you're getting a live look here at the motorcade departing from the Arizona State Capitol.
Yeah, John, just logistically, again, that stretch of 17th Avenue right there at Wesley Boland Plaza, obviously closed right now, but they are making their way now over to the I-17, which they will take northbound up to Camelback and then over to Central and then to the North Phoenix Baptist Church there. Again, it's appropriate to do what you see folks doing right there. They are lining this route. They're making their way, the hearses, meticulously along with that honor guard, you could call them, the DPS motorcycle troopers making their way. So if you would like to go and find that route, again, we're talking the I-17 to Camelback and Central. All along that route, you can make your way and pay your last respects as well. Let's toss out to Megan Thompson, our Megan Thompson here live along Camelback, the procession route. Are you seeing folks lining the streets there, Megan?
Absolutely, Dan. If you take a live look out here, we actually have seen some of the people from Xavier, the students from Xavier, showing up right now. We knew that they were going to head out this way, and they've now made their way in full force out here with some of these McCain political signs that they are holding up. Meghan McCain actually graduated from Xavier right here in the Valley back in 2003. So the school is just saying they're out here to support her and the family, that their hearts are with them right now. But dozens and dozens of people are now lining the streets here near Central and Camelback. We've had a few people who have been handing out those political signs that we have seen throughout this procession route, even from the state capitol to right there at the church. And so now many people have been lining the streets for hours now. We did talk to one woman, the first to arrive here right around 7:45 this morning. She said she just had to be here, had to say goodbye. Even if that hearse is just going to pass by for a matter of seconds, it's the moment everyone here is waiting for. We're actually keeping a lot of the crowd here updated, Dan, about when that hearse is leaving. We know it just left, as John Treeweiler has been describing to us, so we're trying to keep everyone updated out here so they don't miss that moment to honor Senator John McCain.
Well, this is history, no doubt. This is history, Megan, and so many people, again, from the state of Arizona, especially those of us here in this state, we remember Senator John McCain fondly, and of course, he has represented our state for the better part of the last 30 years, more than 30 years, in fact, in the Senate, again, winning 6 terms to the U.S. Senate. So again, as the hearse makes its way, it's just that moment. It's almost like that presidential motorcade where you don't get time with the president himself, but you have that moment where you say, I saw it drive past. That's what these folks are doing, hands on their hearts, the flags waving, the campaign signs. In fact, of course, 2-time presidential candidate there, 1-time nominee for the Republican nomination for the presidency. And as we see on the left-hand side of your screen there, the body of John McCain in the hearse there, making its way slowly, meticulously up toward North Phoenix Baptist Church. Again, the route, if you would like to make your way out there along this route, they're making their way over from the state capitol grounds now to the I-17. They will take that up to Camelback, so you can go to any of those locations. We were wondering this morning as we spoke about perhaps the overpasses. Again, be safe as you do this. You don't want to block traffic, but there are a lot of places all along, almost as if it were a parade route, as you heard kind of John Treeweiler mention in the last couple of days, almost a parade route atmosphere, but again, a somber one to pay those respects and to take a moment of silence too. You could have heard a pin drop out there as the folks gather at the state grounds and now make their way toward the church. We're going to be watching this, Air 15 traveling from above to watch the entire procession. Of course, DPS doing great work, and the local police departments as well, coordinating this massive effort. Logistically, this in and of itself is an effort that is to be applauded here as they try to honor appropriately our state's senior senator who passed away on Saturday. Of course, all the dignitaries have made their way up to North Phoenix Baptist Church. They await his arrival, and they will be speaking in just a few moments. That service set to get started at about 10 o'clock. So about 47 minutes from now, 47 minutes. Let's toss it out to Jennifer Martinez, who is along this procession route as well. Camelback and Central, the general location. Jenny, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, there's a lot of people out here. You can see that many people are holding, of course, American flags and those McCain campaign signs. That's really what we're seeing. And as I mentioned yesterday, the American spirit, a lot of people are just wearing red, white, and blue. I spoke to some folks here on the route, and they say that they came here to pay respects not only to Senator John McCain, but of course his family. We've seen people holding signs. There's actually a sign that says Senator John McCain, because character counts. And the guy that is actually holding that sign, he says that that's why he voted for McCain. That's the type of political parties that he wants to see in the Senate, in the White House. So that's really what you're seeing. A lot of people talking about John McCain and sharing stories. I also spoke to one other gentleman who said that he's actually been in Arizona for 53 years. He said that he voted for McCain the first time, and it's been an honor to vote for him for the past 30 years. So he's been here as well. He's here with his wife. So just a live look, you can see just how many people are starting to really just pick up here. And people started to come about 6 o'clock this morning, and there were just a handful of people, and throughout the last hour, just more people just showing up. So sending it right back to you.
Yeah, Jennifer, we thank you for that with our sister station KGUN. And again, a statewide event here. And we are seeing now the hearse there traveling onto the I-17. This is the Black Canyon Freeway, making its way up toward the Stack interchange with the 10. And that is where they will begin that route. You can see that on the left-hand side of your screen up to Camelback. But we saw some folks there, perhaps on the overpasses watching. This is a slow pace. This is a way to properly make sure everyone gets to where they're going safely, and to also make sure that they honor the senator appropriately. And everybody who wants to can get the chance to see the hearse and again to pay their last respects to Senator John McCain. Again, you talk about the political makeup of the state. It doesn't really matter. Arizona is a place that has Republicans and Democrats in different spots. We talk about the purple hue perhaps in different election cycles. Senator John McCain known for reaching across the aisle. In fact, former Vice President Joe Biden speaking at his service that will begin, in about 40 minutes or so. And again, that just expresses the bipartisanship that Senator McCain was known for. He was known for making friends in other political parties and those of different persuasions, perhaps politically, than he was. Not so much a hardliner that he couldn't try to get things done working with others. And so, again, that kind of represents the state of Arizona as well, doesn't it? We are in a state with a lot of different opinions, a lot of different political ideals, and Senator McCain tried to embody those at different times. Of course, he liked to have his opinions as well. We know Senator McCain was not a quiet person. Stephen Cayley, I was actually talking with some folks about what they remember most about the senator and his perhaps upfront way of speaking sometimes is what he is known for as well.
They equate that to being charming. And in fact, yesterday we were talking to the Attorney General, Mark Brnovich, and he was saying if he wasn't being a bit sarcastic, something was wrong.
Yeah, people wondered if they were in trouble if he wasn't giving them a hard time or cracking wisecracks and that sort of thing. McCain was known to use some salty language, and occasionally he was known to be temperamental as well. And people often said that he would come and chew them out and then contact them later and say, well, maybe I was a little bit too intense on that. Maybe I ought to step back. He always knew that you fight your battles, but then you shake hands afterward, and everybody kind of comes out of their corners and meets in the middle. And that was his ultimate goal, was to kind of rattle people.
Yes. And
then eventually get them to move a little bit in his direction.
And it might be why we are seeing today people like Joe Biden here to give a eulogy. So I think the lineup of all the people who are going to be here at this service today, it's a real tribute to who John McCain was. We were just talking about Mark Brnovich. It's really interesting out here. We're seeing a lot of people walk by. We're seeing Senator Jeff Flake, and here we are, our Attorney General, getting ready to join us right now to talk with us about the time he has spent with Senator John McCain since 1984 as an intern. That's when their relationship first began, and now helping, really, he is said, to shape his life and his political career.
This is a national story, and
yes.
I think that's one of the things that we should note here, is that all of the major networks are here, all of the national press is here as well, because John McCain obviously meant a lot to Arizona, but he was a national figure, and he is being remembered, I think, and memorialized almost like a president would be.
Absolutely. 5 days, you bet. Thank you for being with us, Attorney General.
Mark Brnovich, thanks. I know you've been making the rounds and talking to folks here. What does Arizona owe John McCain?
I think if Senator McCain were here right now, he would say Arizona doesn't owe him anything. Arizona, he loved the state, and he wanted to give so much back to the state. And I remember when I was in his office back in December, shortly before he came back to Arizona for good, we were looking through a Arizona Highways book, a picture book, and he was talking about how much he loved this state and how, he hoped he did right by the people of Arizona. And I think that today, when you look around, it's a testament that he obviously did. And I think that regardless of people's political backgrounds, today is not about politics. No. Today is about honoring Senator McCain and everything he did. And he touched so many people's lives in the state, whether they were interns or whether they worked on his staff, or, he met him at an airport. I mean, my nephew, we were talking about this a couple days ago. My nephew saw him at an airport in D.C. and took a selfie with him, a couple years ago. And he was always really generous with his time, and he truly loved the state. That is really part of his legacy.
The essence of that question, though, what does Arizona owe John McCain? What would he worked so hard to move the state forward. What should the state do now in his memory for his legacy?
You know, I think today is part of that, but ultimately there's got to be a way to honor him. And when you think about, we have Luke Air Force Base, we have Davis Monthan, down in Tucson. He did so much for the military and preserving those bases. And the reason why we have an F-35 fighter wing coming here. So it would, I think, be nice if there was some way in conjunction with maybe a military installation or something. We have the Barry Goldwater bombing range, which was named because of Barry Goldwater's support for the military. It would be nice if there was some way that we could do that. And I'm an Army guy. He was a Navy guy. In fact, we bet on last year's Army-Navy football game, and he still owes me. Somewhere up there, I'm waiting for him to pay his bet because
you'll get reacquainted in heaven.
Yes, but he was, so he was. They named a Navy ship after him, but it would be nice if we did something here as a state as well.
Well, we're doing a lot right now, I would imagine, for the family. Thank you, Mark Brnovich. We appreciate that. The procession happening right now. We have a lot of people lining up along the route where his family is on the way from the state capital.
The one thing I would say, as Arizonans, I grew up here and, we had Barry Goldwater, Mo Udall, but John McCain was truly one of those icons, and I think that this is all a reflection of that, the lining, the route stuff. It's just because I think Arizonans crave, they want someone like that that's beyond, that's bigger than politics, that really cared, that loved his country so much that he was willing to sacrifice everything, including 5.5 years of his life in a POW prison.
Yeah,
just gave you chills.
Enormous shoes to fill. Mark Brnovich, thanks so much.
You.
We know you got to get the time. We appreciate your time.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Dan?
Yeah, and when you consider maybe the generation from their mid-40s on down, the name Barry Goldwater, yes, has historic significance, but John McCain was that ever-present presence in our state politically as well. And again, the far reaches of the state, remembering John McCain. You got to love that he spent his time up in a little place like Cornville, just outside of Cottonwood. So these small rural towns in Arizona could also appreciate the fact that John McCain, he was a world traveler. He, of course, growing up as a child of someone who was in the Navy, always moving around, born in Panama, and of course his time as a POW. He spent a lot of time elsewhere, but he loved Arizona. Let's get back out now to Megan Thompson. Megan, what are you seeing there?
Hey, Dan, we are literally making our way through the crowd right now as many people have moved up to the very, very edge of the street right here to try and catch a glimpse of this hearse making its way through right now. So we're all at the edge of the roadway right now to be sure if we can catch a sneak peek of all of this that is going on right now. Huge crowds have now gathered here right now to see all of the stuff going on. You can see a live look from the procession as it's making its way through, making its way down here to Central and Camelback is where these large crowds have officially gathered right now. I have Irene Gonzalez with me here right now. Come over here. No, you're fine. Irene here has been here since about 7:45 this morning. Right. Irene, so tell me what brought you out here.
Well, I wanted to show respect to Senator McCain and his family, and he's just a world-class politician.
And you had to be here so early. You were the first one actually out here on the street corner. Right. Why did you have to be here so early to get a spot?
Well, like I said, he was a world-class politician. He was a type of politician who could debate with his counterpart and then go have a beer, which is the way politics should be, but mainly because he deserves this type of respect.
And you're a blogger. You grew up here in Arizona, correct? Just like him. How important is it to, he's an adopted son, is what we call him, right? But a true Arizonan through and through, I think. So tell me what you think to have a senator like McCain representing Arizona, now a state that you live in and you blog about all the time.
It's a terrible loss to the state because of the type of person he was. He, had integrity. He had great work ethic. And to lose somebody like that, he made me very proud. As a citizen, somebody who's born and raised here, he made me very proud to be from Phoenix, from Arizona.
You were the first person to be here, but if you look around, we have a huge crowd that's now joined us. What does this make you feel like to see all these people around you?
It makes me proud because when I first got here, I was like, there's nobody here. Where's everybody at? Stop, I'm waving my flag. Then an hour went by and it was still kind of nobody here. But then all of a sudden, everyone's here and it makes me really proud that everybody came out. So that everybody in the world can see how much support he had here at home.
How much we all cared. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Irene, so much for being here. A lot of the folks here also from Xavier have come out here as Meghan McCain, Dan, graduated in 2003 from that school. So they are very much in support of the McCain family this morning.
Megan, they are making their way off of the I-17 right now at Camelback. And something to give you chills, the traffic on the other side of the freeway pausing, and you saw doors of cars open. I'm sure folks were trying to grab their phones and snap that picture saying, hey, I was there. I saw the procession go by. I saw Senator John McCain on one of his last journeys here in the state of Arizona. And you talk about being an adopted son. A lot of us are adopted sons and daughters of Arizona. We feel what Senator McCain felt, the love of this state once we finally planted roots here, and that's what they are. The roots here in Arizona run deep, regardless of when you show up here. Senator McCain showed you can do that. You can assimilate and become an Arizonan, considering who he has at this service that begins in about a half an hour. We're going to hear from Larry Fitzgerald, local legend, of course. Gonzo, also Luis Gonzalez with the Diamondbacks, Shane Doan with the Coyotes. He was a big Arizona sports fan. He loved his teams. He loved the people and the fans and just being a part of this state. Certainly an Arizonan through and through. But how many people across the Valley of the Sun or across the state of Arizona have relocated here and made Arizona their home? That's not to take away from those who are the long-time third, fourth, fifth generation desert dwellers here. But again, so many people, when it comes to Arizona, when it gets in your blood, it's just a part of you. And that was Senator John McCain. He got to Arizona and he couldn't get away. He had to stay here, raising, of course, the latter half of his family here, his children, like you just mentioned, Meghan McCain and Xavier there, grad, proud alum. So we're going to see the folks along Camelback now getting what they've been waiting for. They've got the signs, they've got the flags, and they're waiting for that moment to wave and perhaps talk about this moment with their children as the generations go by. Truly a singular name there, John McCain. You were talking about naming things after him in this state. Think about that, the airport with the terminal now, the John S. McCain terminal as they will have it. And on Google Maps, also the office building back in Washington, D.C. But of course, we'd love to see some things named here, perhaps after Senator John McCain. I wonder if we have a ground shot now as they make their way to Camelback, along Camelback there. There it is. You love to see those young people. And this is something that they will remember for a long time. They'll remember where they were and what their parents perhaps did and their teachers talking about it. I know my kids will want to talk about this today since John McCain passed away on Saturday. They've been asking questions and we've talked about it. Those of us who got the chance to talk to the senator in person, it was a special moment to talk to someone who truly is remembered now on a national scale the way that he is, and honored as they make their way toward North Phoenix Baptist Church. All right, the procession route again making its way on Camelback towards Central and toward the church. So if you've got a few minutes and if you are in that area of Phoenix, kind of the general location there toward North Phoenix Baptist Church, head on out for this last chance to see the senator making his way through there. Again, after this service, he will be making his way over to Sky Harbor to then fly back east to Annapolis, Maryland. But let's get out now to Stephen Cayley outside the church there again, where there is a lot of somber folks, but again, excitement again to celebrate the life of this great senator from Arizona, guys.
I think it's important that you say that because this really is a celebration of his life here. Steve and I are both walking around visiting with different people who have come here to pay their final respects, people who are outside, also people who are inside. And there is a genuine sense of remembrance and the importance of celebrating the way I believe people who knew him best would want us to be celebrating.
Yeah, we've all managed to get a copy of the program here. It says John Sidney McCain III, United States Senator, and inside you'll see tributes from a number of people. I think it's astonishing the diversity of the tributes. Yes. You've got star athletes, you've got CEOs, you've got politicians, you've got people from all walks of life that he touched in some ways. There's an extensive list of pallbearers, for instance, who are going to be there. Shane Doan and Luis Gonzalez among them, but as well the CEOs of two of the largest companies in Phoenix, Freeport-McMoRan and APS. And so you've got a real diverse group of people there that are celebrating his life, and it gives you an idea of his influence as well as just the number of people that he touched.
And on the way over here we were visiting about the long list of lawmakers from all over the country. The updated list we received this morning of all of the people who are making this day a priority, not just in Washington this weekend, but coming all the way to Arizona to make sure that they are able to pay their respects to John McCain.
Let's bring in Mike O'Neill, a political consultant and observer here. Not a surprise to see all of these folks from both sides of the aisle and virtually every point along the political spectrum.
Anything but this would have been a surprise.
Yeah. When we talk about, though, his influence and the people who are eulogizing him, the people who are remembering him, some of them his political opponents, What does that say about John McCain?
Oh, that says everything. That says that politics to him was not blood sport, that there were limits that were circumscribed about that. There were several moments when that was evident. If you recall the famous moment with the woman that's and the pause and the Arab. She was not very articulate, but she was trying to say he was some sort of an other. And he instantly gravitated to that and said, no, that's beyond the pale. I'm not going to feed that. And it's really an old school politics that I think a lot of us are going to look back on and hope that we can somehow retrieve at some point, where you could honestly disagree with something and then go out and have a beer.
We live in a day and age where you can watch 24-hour cable news. You can literally fill your day with politics these days. And it's not just around election time. It's 24/7. It is off years when nobody's running for anything, and yet everybody is still political. Has that contributed to this polarization that we see?
I'm not sure that 24/7. It's more the segmentation of the news. You can get one slant or another on the news, and I flip channels all the time, and I see you're watching two different worlds there. It's not only a slightly different slant on, it's a different story.
Yeah.
And there's of course there's some things you can't avoid talking about, but there's a chasm, and we experience the world with a different information set. And in the old days of Huntley Brinkley and Walter Cronkite, that wasn't the same. We had sort of a common set of information, and then we embarked from there. And we've been fragmented since then.
And this might be too idealistic, but you've been a strategist. You've been in this world for 40 years plus. Is it too ideal to think that maybe a moment like this would hopefully trigger some sort of idea that we could be nicer to each other in Washington?
I'd love to believe that, but they're usually fleeting moments. I'd really love to believe that.
Yeah.
I think there are moments where the country can come together. Everybody remembers 9/11, but do you remember 9/12? And do you remember the way the country was right after 9/11? The country came together. Democrats and Republicans, it didn't matter. We had been attacked. Our nation's security was at risk, and
it was unambiguous. It was unambiguous. It wasn't something. It wasn't a word choice. It wasn't something we did. It was something that was done to us. It was patently evil, and we experienced it probably like no single event since Pearl Harbor.
And when that sort of thing happens, we all come together and we remind ourselves that we're all Americans. And I don't know that John McCain's death is necessarily as cataclysmic event like that, but he's certainly a reminder of that sort of spirit that we've seen after 9/11, after Pearl Harbor, those events where the country says we are all still together.
And the sad thing is when you think about who else is there that is of that ilk, it's a pretty short list.
But we say yet, right? Because there have to be more people out there who are inspired and who will hopefully look at his legacy and maybe step up.
Here's the problem they face. How do they get through primary elections?
That's true.
Where they have to please the most partisan of their own party.
You bring up a very good point.
There's another senator in this state who's retiring much for that reason.
Do you think if Jeff Flake had been able to get through the primary, he'd do pretty well in the general election?
He'd win. Yeah. Period. He'd win. If you had a system where there were no primaries, like top two that's been talked about, where you don't run with party, with or without labels, you run in a general kind of thing, he would appeal to middle. That's the funny thing about what's going on the Republican side. He is a very conservative guy. He was the executive director of the Goldwater Institute, but his problem with the far right now is that he's been unwilling he has been willing to criticize Donald Trump on personal matters, and that doesn't pass the litmus test in the Republican primary.
And it used to. John McCain certainly criticized his own
Well, John
party.
McCain had the advantage of starting out with a lot of stature, and he also he had his last election before Trump too. For him to do it in the next election would have been a little tougher.
Unfortunately, though, there's mudslinging that goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
That's where we've come. It's unfortunate because the most important issues get lost in arguments that in many cases just don't matter.
We know we are just now a few minutes away from that motorcade arriving here at North Phoenix Baptist Church. This might be a familiar area to a lot of you, especially if you've ever attended the APS Electric Light Parade that is held every year around the holidays. This is
let me interrupt here, guys. We are seeing now the hearse that is about to turn onto Central there, again making its way up. I want to get out to Megan Thompson once again there on the ground. Megan, along the sidewalks there. Go ahead, what are you seeing?
Dan, we are seeing a massive crowd that has made their way all the way up. Some of them in the street, actually, trying to get any kind of view they can of Senator John McCain's hearse that will come through this area. We have plenty of everyday people holding out those McCain signs, holding out American flags. You also notice a lot of people in uniform in their Xavier outfits here because Meghan McCain actually graduated in 2003 from Xavier. We also have students from Brophy that are out there in these red T-shirts that are over on the corner there of Central and Camelback. We have police officers and their motorcades, as well as the Phoenix Police helicopter flying over right now as we gear up for the senator to make his way down the street here. We have people lining both sides of the street, actually, to get a glimpse, just a moment or so, of that hearse passing through. Again, it'll be seconds that people are able to pay their respects to honor the senator out here, but all of them say this is all worth it. This is the moment they are waiting for, to catch a glimpse of the man who sacrificed most of his life to serve all of us, Dan.
Yeah, we'll keep those images up on your screen as we watch the hearse make its way. Again, only about 1,000 people were able to get those tickets, those kind of highly coveted items there, to be at this ceremony. This is the memorial for Arizona. Of course, over the next few days, the senator will receive these honors on the national level. Again, he's going to be flown after this service back east. He will be arriving in Maryland and then at the National Cathedral. And then, of course, on Sunday, he will be buried at Annapolis at the Naval Academy. Okay, they are on 7th Avenue right now, I'm being told, as Air 15 watches from above. Again, it's a good feeling to see all of those people line, and you saw the flags kind of dip down. And now we see some other folks there. Okay, these kids are from Brophy. I believe one of his sons, if not both of his younger sons, went to Brophy. Both attended Brophy, I was just told. I thought so. And so again, Brophy and Xavier, the current students honoring their alums and, of course, the father of their alums. John McCain, just part of Arizona, part of Phoenix culture as well. You know, here we are out in the West, and we like to get the attention on the national scale for good things and positive things, and that's what we've got here. You can see kind of some crowd control going on right now. They're trying to keep some people back just to make sure they stay safe. Again, stay up on the curb. You'd hate to have some kind of an accident here, some sort of an unplanned event there, but my goodness, what a large crowd we see out there as the senator makes his way past. There we go as we see them turn. And there's the procession from the ground level. They're turning onto Central right now. The DPS troopers, the leading edge of that, the motorcycle troopers. Again, a very calm atmosphere with so many people, hundreds and hundreds lining the streets, and yet an appropriate show of respect for the senator as he makes his way past. John McCain, you'll remember, came to Arizona in the early 80s, ran for Congress, 2 terms in Congress in the House side, and then ran and succeeded Barry Goldwater, another giant name in Arizona politics and in Arizona history.
Yes, I can.
Megan, go ahead. I know you're right on the ground.
Dan, we have just seen that hearse.
Yeah, they see the procession.
Yeah, the hearse just passed us. Cindy McCain also just passed us, giving a wave just a moment ago to the crowd who is all gathered out here to give her husband the farewell that he absolutely deserves. Now, all the girls out here for Xavier, they've been told, put your hands on your heart, because their 2003 graduate, Meghan McCain, is in these vehicles as well, and they want to show their support to her. That was just an incredible show to see. I can tell you I'm getting emotional standing out here to see this show of support from the people of Arizona and these huge crowds from law enforcement, the extensive crew that has come out to make sure that the senator makes it there safely, makes it there to receive his full honors there at his memorial service here in Arizona. The very last time all of the people out here will get a chance to honor that senator as he leaves from Arizona today to go to our nation's capital, to go to Maryland to his final resting place. We still have this procession making its way here down Central Avenue. We have more DPS state troopers who are making their way along the line right now, following all of the vehicles with the family inside, as well as, of course, the hearse with the senator's body inside. More patrol cars are making their way down the streets as they work now to open Central Avenue and Camelback, as they've kept it closed. But like you mentioned, Dan, yes, there were Brophy students on the corner there. They're the ones in the red shirts. And then we have Xavier out here as well, all showing their support for the McCain family. What an incredible showing of support that these people have seen out here. I heard gasps from the crowd, just in awe of the moment that they just witnessed, a historical moment, Dan.
When you saw the hats come off and you saw the hands go over the hearts there as those folks who'd been waiting for quite a while, and you see the flags waving too. You see that there on the street level, the flags waving as Senator John McCain makes his way. He's now getting pretty close, approaching North Phoenix Baptist Church, where dignitaries and loved ones, friends, and perfect strangers, to be quite honest, Arizona citizens have gathered to pay their last respects to Senator John McCain. Quite the list. We've described it as star-studded, which makes you think it's this celebrity-driven event, but honestly, that just shows you the far-reaching impact that John McCain has. We're talking people from the world of athletics and politics and local celebrities as well, people from the national scale. Upwards of 25 senators from that body from Washington, D.C. will be here for our Arizona service. We've got a live look outside North Phoenix Baptist Church there, where this will take place. The ceremony set to begin in less than 20 minutes now. We don't have an exact amount of time that they will be inside for this service. You have a number of speakers, each who will, of course, like to give their own personal anecdotes and stories about their interactions with the senator. But after that, he will make his way to Sky Harbor, where he will then fly back east and have those services on the national scale. And we will cover that for you as well here on ABC 15. Let's get back out right now to Steve Irvin and Kaylee O'Kelly.
And we're beginning to hear that police helicopter, which is an indication that the motorcade is approaching closely. You mentioned Brophy and the impact that Brophy Prep plays in John McCain's life. His sons Jack and Jimmy both going there, and there are a couple of moments in this program that are going to be led by the Brophy Student Ensemble. The first hymn, Amazing Grace, sung by some of the students there. It's an important school for John McCain and for a number of other prominent politicians in Arizona, including Governor Ducey, who sends his children there as well.
And if you don't know, this is the part of town where John McCain lived. This is his neighborhood. And so to see all of those people line up with all of those campaign signs from years past, that is such a remarkable and beautiful sight, considering, you think about these campaign signs, these people have held on to these for quite some time, but it shows again what a tribute this is to John McCain, not just in our state, not just across the nation, but right here in his neighborhood.
Yeah. Mike, when you look at most of Phoenix is blue. Most of Phoenix is
which surprises most people, but not this neighborhood.
But not this particular neighborhood. This is a neighborhood that does pretty well in the Republican category. But nonetheless, he did very well in Democratic areas as well.
Yeah. Well, he has always had crossover appeals. The last polls that were done showed he had actually higher approval amongst Democrats than among Republicans. So that's a figure that has varied over time.
You often hear Megan, his daughter, though, talk about, the far left and the far right, and somehow trying to bridge that gap somewhere in the middle. And we've heard her talk about this even recently on The View. And, it makes you wonder, because you think about Arizona, so representative of who we are. And, again, maybe the changing of this glowing of purple that we might very well represent here in our state.
We're in the neighborhood, particularly this year, which on a national level portends to be a very big Democratic year. That probably cancels the innate Republican advantage in this state. So we're going to, also, by the way, one other thing, in the last election, and most people miss this, but Arizona in relative terms moved more in a Democratic direction than all but a couple of states.
And
it was the only competitive state.
Mike, we're seeing the motorcade now pulling up, and it's actually expected to pull up and stop literally right behind where we are sitting right now. We're seeing that those DPS motorcycle officers now pulling into the parking lot. That's followed by some of the SUVs and then the hearse itself, which will be carrying Senator McCain's flag-draped casket here. We should say that there are a number of people standing up, saluting, standing at attention. That includes what appears to be a Veterans Honor Guard, which is sitting right behind us. And then you're going to be able to see this motorcade pass right behind us as it comes in. And you'll get a different view, of course, from Air 15 and some of the other cameras that are here to capture the moment. We're going to actually give you a better view by kind of moving out of our spot here so we can see.
All right, guys, I know you've got a vantage point there on the ground. We are also seeing this from our ABC 15 crews all over the valley, here covering it as the senator approaches the church. Again, 1,000 people were able to get inside. Those public tickets made available. They went fast, but they are awaiting the arrival of the senator as he approaches now in front of the North Phoenix Baptist Church, making his way for the better part of the last half hour or so from the state capitol grounds. A lot of respect being paid to the senator. Hundreds of people lining the streets there to again wave flags, take their caps off, and kind of hand on their heart welcome the senator this to his celebration of life. It's a memorial service, but again, we are going to hear a lot of stories about Senator McCain and his interactions with those in our community, people who we regard as celebrities, those who are on our teams with the Cardinals, the D-backs, Coyotes. But of course, he was a great fan of the Phoenix sports scene.
Dan, we're seeing Cindy McCain now exiting the vehicle that's been trailing the hearse carrying the casket for John McCain. We're seeing John Sidney McCain IV, known as Jack, and his wife also exiting that vehicle. Jack is a Navy helicopter pilot himself, married with a child, one of the grandchildren for John and Sidney McCain. And there is a military honor guard standing by, pallbearers who will carry that casket inside. It appears that that military honor guard represents every branch of the military, Marine Corps, Air Force, of course the Navy. John McCain was a veteran, Army, Coast Guard, all of them standing at attention, ready to carry this ceremony. Cindy McCain and family being greeted by officials here at the North Phoenix Baptist Church.
We see
the
Megan.
lead pastor expected to open this ceremony, walking Cindy McCain in, followed by his son Jack, their adopted daughter Megan McCain as well, and other members of the McCain family, the 7 children that John and Cindy McCain have. 2 of them from a previous marriage. McCain adopted them. And of course, photographers and others here to capture the moment. Most of those attending the funeral have already made their way inside. We were told that most of the folks who came here had to be inside by about 9:15 or so, just in place for this. We're now seeing the Veteran Honor Guard, the flag bearers making their way away, and we expect that the military pallbearers will move next.
And once everyone is in place, there will be a welcome by senior pastor here, Dr. Garcia. And Steve, you mentioned this before, the Brophy Student Ensemble will be singing the hymnal Amazing Grace, and then we will see this entire memorial play out. And you know that the senator must have had a very big say in how this was going to happen today, the entire lineup.
We're now seeing the civilian pallbearers as well make their way out. And there are a number of them, a couple of names certainly that people are going to remember here. Luis Gonzalez among them, you see him there. Shane Doan, also one of the pallbearers. But there are a number of others. Don Brandt, who's the CEO of APS. William Adkerson, who's the CEO of Freeport-McMoRan Mining Company, a large mining company based here in Phoenix. So titans of industry,
yes.
Professional athletes. There's a law professor among them as well, a real estate developer. Some of the most influential people in the valley, but for different reasons.
This is really special. And this gives you an idea of, yes, how far-reaching John McCain was, but also really kind of what a small town this feels like. I mean, you see these people, they are unified here by one man, and we all have a common interest in mind of Arizona. And again, to celebrate the life of a man who means so much to the country. Of course, you're looking at Gonzo, Luis Gonzalez, obviously a close personal friend to the McCain family.
Yeah, guys, we're looking at the pallbearers. We've got a couple of vantage points here, too. We saw Luis Gonzalez there. You guys were mentioning all of those whose names are synonymous with Arizona, of course, here in the Phoenix area. And Kaylee, like you said, kind of a small town feel. This is truly a singular moment here because considering what we've heard, only 3 men ever held this position, this U.S. Senate seat. And now when you consider what will happen soon politically, several could hold it in the next several years. And so John McCain certainly is someone who we will not see, even anyone in that mold, anytime in the near future. This is someone who has occupied this seat and kind of the collective political consciousness for the state of Arizona and for the nation for the better part of the last 30 to 40 years. Of course, his time as a POW making him a household name, and then he comes back and he settles in Arizona. So again, seeing all of those people from different walks of life there is something to behold.
Dan, I believe these civilian pallbearers are symbolic in their nature. The actual task of being a pallbearer is going to go to the military, and we've seen military honors throughout. It's telling that there's a veteran honor guard here as well as an active duty pallbearer honor guard. We're also going to see a little bit later at least one song played by a first responder group as well. So John McCain certainly represented all of these folks and made it his mission in politics to take care of them. The Defense Appropriations Bill is named after John McCain, and as the head of the Senate Armed Services Committee, he made it his mission to always make sure that the military had all of the resources it needed to complete its mission.
He's also a proponent of our Native American tribes. Had the opportunity to visit with a gentleman who is going to be part of what's happening inside today, and was speaking about things that were happening there.
We're not seeing Cindy McCain make her way out. She will line up much as she did yesterday in front of the state capitol, essentially forming a path for John McCain to make his way inside for this service. Members of the McCain family also joining her. I see Jack McCain, Meghan McCain. A very emotional moment, especially yesterday when we saw the emotion from Meghan McCain. She, in many ways, is the most political member of the McCain family at this point. She is someone who has carried the torch for her father and carried the torch for much of the Republican Party. And again, we're seeing an overwhelming expression of emotion. She has openly grieved throughout this process. It's been the greatest expression of emotion that we've seen from, I think, any member
very
of the
brave
family.
of her, though. Very vulnerable, obviously. But some of the people I had spoken with yesterday, even also early this morning in the newsroom, there were times yesterday, I think we all we wanted that privacy for her because they were clearly so incredibly close. And to have to go through this so publicly so many times has to be grueling. It has to be. My heart breaks for her.
Let's take a step back and take this in. I believe the gentleman that just stepped forward in leading this casket into the service is Dr. Noe Garcia. He's the senior pastor here at North Phoenix Baptist Church.
And he will be leading the welcome once this service gets underway. Take a look around here, see there are not a lot of dry eyes here at North Phoenix Baptist Church, that is for sure.
If you guys consider the precision at which this is carried out, it kind of reminds you of the Tomb of the Unknowns if you've been there in Arlington National Cemetery, the way the Marine Guard carries out step by step with such a precise mechanism. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Members of the McCain family now following those civilian pallbearers, all carefully selected into the service, which we expect to begin very shortly. Very similar to what we saw outside the Capitol Rotunda yesterday. Of course, the pallbearers there from the Arizona National Guard, another branch of the military, mostly folks who are weekend warriors, people who are essentially reservists, although their role is a little bit different. They mainly protect the state and are called out in natural disasters and other situations here. Dan, we're going to go inside now and join this service, which is expected to start shortly.
Yeah, guys, we were seeing a view from above here. Again, just to give you an idea, 1,000 people inside. In a few minutes, this will start. Afterward, the senator will be taken to Sky Harbor and flown back east, where there are a few more days worth. Imagine the emotional strain and the toll on this McCain family and those loved ones and those close to the McCains. But also imagine the strength that they are receiving from seeing so many well wishes, so many people who are there to help them through this time, to help them feel as though they are not alone, and to feel as though they are getting the love and respect they deserve. The service is about to begin 10 o'clock. The start time here as those inside the North Phoenix Baptist Church await the beginnings of these proceedings again. We will hear a lot of speakers, and we'll try and kind of walk you through it, depending on who we see and who might be there in the crowd as well. I want to bring in Ernie Calderon right now, who is an attorney who knew John McCain well. Spent a lot of time with the McCains. Tell us about your association with the senator.
Well, I think I've always been part of the loyal opposition, but John was truly a gentleman, worked well with everyone. After the political fights, he did everything he could to make sure that what was best for Arizona happened. And I got to know him by sometimes being a fly on the wall, sometimes actually having the opportunity to work with him.
And what's it like to see these final shows of respect for the senator? You would expect nothing less, I assume.
Well, this is wonderful. This is truly what he deserves. And candidly, this is truly what Arizona deserves. John McCain didn't get into this seat by himself. He got in because a lot of Arizonans believed in him. And he paid tribute to Arizona, even in his final book. So I think all of us have a sense of ownership in what John McCain did. Not to take anything away from him, so it is nice that national, international attention's on Arizona. We
talked about that, Ernie and I, both from southern Arizona, small towns. I moved there in middle school. Your whole life have lived here in these small corners of Arizona.
I was there with Father Kino, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. All the way back, you remember, ages ago. But so it always feels good to have those who give Arizona the proper respect, because oftentimes we're cast aside, right?
Well, Arizona has had a tremendous history of national leadership. As you were alluding to, John McCain is the fourth person to have served in this seat. Henry Fountain Ashurst at the time of statehood, then from 1927 to 1969, Carl Hayden.
Yeah, we're seeing the senator being brought in right now. We will have the invocation coming up, but right now, again, everyone stands and pays the respect, as we saw along the entire route, that whole procession route from the state capitol grounds, and now the final location for now. Yeah, as we go along, you can kind of talk us through this too, Ernie.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a very solemn entrance you might have seen on television. You had one set of pallbearers, the honorary pallbearers, a lot of business leaders in the country, in the state, George Weiss, Don Brandt, a variety of Don Brandt from APS and others. Bob Delgado from the Hensley Companies, very close to the family, actually even really part of the family. And then you had a very traditional military honor guard moving at its morning pace, a very, very sacred pace. And then, of course, the widow Cindy and her sons and daughters and stepdaughters.
It's all very formal, isn't it? I mean, appropriately so.
He's a United States Senator. They call it the most exclusive club in the world. And all deference is given to a senator's funeral.
We know Senator John McCain wished to be the president. He didn't quite get there. However, this feels kind of like that. It feels like honoring one of the elder statesmen in our country.
Well, the beauty of this is that John McCain was self-described as imperfect, and we're imperfect too. So this is one of us who's being buried, someone who has tried and failed, like we all tried and failed. But yet has done a great deal of good in life, and hopefully we do too.
Our start time now begins. Let's listen in.
You may be seated. On behalf of the McCain family, thank you all so much for being here this morning as we remember and celebrate the life of Senator John McCain, a true American hero, a man loved by this church, a man loved by this nation and this city, a man of courage, a man of faith, and a man who dearly loved his family. As we celebrate and get into the service, I want to offer you a word of scripture from the Word of God that will bring us comfort. It comes from the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 13 through 14. The Word of God says this: brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope. For we believe that Jesus died and rose again, and so we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in him. What a word of promise, hope, and comfort from the Word of God. Let's pray together. Father in heaven, the creator and maker of all things, there is nothing new under the sun for you, Father. You know all things before they happen. And this morning, Lord, we pray for the friends and family of Senator McCain. And we will grieve, we will mourn, Father. But we will do so with a different hope because of the faith he has placed in Jesus Christ. That we can, with confidence, grieve with the hope to know that this very moment he is spending eternity with Jesus Christ, his Lord and Savior. What a comfort. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to feel, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun.
Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 2. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up the which is planted.
I was 28 years old, and I'd only been a public defender as a few years out of law school, and for some reason John McCain asked me to be his chief of staff when he got elected. So on my first day at 7 a.m., John McCain picked me up at my house. I went to the car and I said, well, do you want me to drive? He goes, no, I'm going to drive. So I said, well, maybe I can sit in the back seat. I'm no expert on this, but I thought the staff drove. He goes, no, get in the car, boy, get in the car. And for the next half hour, we just talked about the football games the day before and whatever was in the news and politics, and told a few jokes. And it was at the same time just really a lot of fun, and also quite terrifying because of his ridiculously bad driving. So he'd get excited, he would kind of, he drove like this anyway, and then he would get excited and just start drifting off. I'm like, hey, hello over there. So we finally got where we were going, and I said, oh, hey, by the way, what are we doing? And he goes, oh, I hired the whole staff, and I want you to meet them. I said, oh, okay, that's good. So we met the staff, and then we went back to the car. We got in the car, and all the staff came out, and they were all waving and things. And I said, well, they seem to be very nice. He goes, oh, you're going to have to fire half of them. I said, what? What are you talking about? And he just sped off, and the staff was waving. And about 1 minute later, we went right back by because he'd gone the wrong way, of course. He waved again. And I just say that 2 hours kind of epitomized the next 35 years for me with John McCain. It was at once a little bit harrowing, a little wild, a little crazy, but a lot of fun, and the greatest honor of my life. I have people ask me all the time, did you ever know in those early years, did you have a feeling you had someone so special there? And my answer is yes, absolutely. No question about it. And I'll tell you the first time. It was in December, and it was over in my hometown of Mesa, Arizona. We were at a Rotary Club, and I think it was all men at that time. And, these are tough guys and kind of cynical about things, and here's this new guy in town. And one of them asked them, since it was December, he asked them, what about Christmas in prison? And he told them a couple of stories. He told them about one night when he was being interrogated for quite a long time, and it didn't go too well for his captors. They were upset with him. And so they tied him up, and they tied the ropes tight, and it was very painful, and they left him there for the night. And some guard came in who he did not know and never spoken to, and at 10 p.m. the guard walked in and unloosened the ropes. And at about 4 a.m., the guard came back and tightened him up again so that he wouldn't get in trouble. And John didn't know why that happened, but he found out a little clue a couple of weeks later, right before Christmas, when he was standing in the dirt yard, and that guard just walked up next to him. And the guard didn't say a word, but with his sandal, he drew a cross in the dirt. And they looked at it for a minute, and then the guard rubbed it out and went on his way. And it was quiet in that room when John told that. And then he said, on Christmas Eve, we celebrated, and we got together under this bare light bulb, and we sang Christmas carols, and we quoted Bible verses that we could remember, and we told the gospel story to each other. And I guess just that image of this band of brothers together in this God-forsaken place, singing to each other. And there at the front, our guy, John McCain, beaten up but not down, singing his favorite Christmas carol, Silent Night, Holy Night, All is calm, all is bright. Round young virgin, mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild. The words seem so far away from that place, but they leaned on the faith of their fathers, and their faith in each other, and their faith in their country, and their faith in God. I looked out into that audience there in my hometown, and those were some of my peers and the peers of my parents. Those are tough, independent guys. They're ranchers and farmers. There's some cowboys, businessmen, entrepreneurs, and they were crying. Because they saw in John McCain a little bit of what they hoped to see in themselves. They saw in John McCain the embodiment of values that they hoped to see for their country. Over the next few months and years, John got to know this place, and he fell in love with Arizona. He loved the people, our diversity, our Native American community, our Hispanic culture, and he loved the place, in particular, the Grand Canyon, the Colorado River. We floated down that twice together, and then he kept going back and back. He loved it. He hiked the canyon with Jack not that long ago, rim to rim. He loved Sedona. He loved this place. And if John McCain fell in love with Arizona, Arizona fell in love with John McCain. We ran a lot of races here, a lot of elections. He never lost, never really very close. Arizona loved him. We had one little blip one time when he ran for the Senate the first time. He called me on the phone. He goes, well, boy, I think I might have screwed up. I go, what? He said, well, you know, I was talking to these students at U of A, and they said, how come you're the only politician that comes down here? They only go to the retirement places. He said, well, it's because you guys don't vote. Okay? Those other dudes vote like 100%, you know, so you want people to come down here, you need to vote like they vote out at Seizure World. I said, you didn't say that, did you? Because there's this big retirement community called Leisure World in the East Valley. And they weren't real happy with their new nickname out there. So John said, like he always does, he said, okay, I screwed up, let's go. We got to go out there. And so we went out, and I remember we drove in, and there was about a 90-year-old guy in a golf cart right there, and he was giving us the finger. And little did he know, we both said, that's great. We love that. And John was like, hey, good to see you. Good to see you, pal. Thank you, thank you. So he went in, he said, oh, sorry about that, and went to work. And guess what? I think he won that about 85-15 in that election, in that precinct. So we're going to miss so many things about him here in our state, his leadership here on these important issues. We're going to miss his sense of humor. We're going to miss his love of sports. He loved the teams, all of our teams. I mean, by love them, I mean love them, like nonstop, okay? And he loved you guys, Fitz and Gonzo and Shane. He really did. Not a coincidence. He didn't become friends just with the best players, but with the best people. And he loved you guys. But I think we also worry here in Arizona about a bigger picture. And I hope that what he stood for will maybe get renewed look in our country. That's what he would want. He would want us to, okay, we recognize him now, but now let's get to work. And I'm sure the Vice President will talk about John and bipartisanship, but he believes so much that this, in the end, when it's all said and done, this Republican-Democrat thing's not that important, is it? We're all Americans, and you've got to get to the point where we can work together as Americans. His support of the military, I hope you members of Congress will keep that strong. It was so important that he had their backs. And one other thing, John McCain believed in our Constitution, and he stood up for it. He fought for it every step of the way. So he would not stand by as people tried to trample the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, including the First Amendment. And you know what? He believed in the Declaration of Independence. When we proclaim to the world that every single human being is important, every single human being is precious, every single person in this world has the right to live free. Not because the government says so, but because God gave us that right. So John McCain, his entire life, stood by the freedom fighters across the world. He was there. He was there figuratively and literally, by their side, wherever they were, acknowledging their right to live free. It's a long and winding road that took him from that dirt yard in Hanoi to the dirt back roads of Hidden Valley. But through it all, he was resolute. He was courageous every step of the way. And in Arizona, he was our hero. I think you can see from this outpouring of support and love for John McCain that he was America's hero. Senator John McCain from Arizona. He served his country with honor. He fought the good fight. He finished the race. He kept the faith. Now, my friend, we can finish the song. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Amen.
Well, I had the great opportunity of meeting Congressman John McCain in Washington. C. Hallett was back there, and I was visiting, and he said, you need to meet this congressman, this young maverick, full of energy. And I said, oh, yeah? He says, besides that, he's going to become president of the United States one of these days, so you need to meet him. I said, okay. So we met in Virginia at my apologies. It was rough getting up here. Alexandria. Cindy and CA and myself, and we had dinner in this nice little restaurant. Yeah, we chatted for a while, and then all of a sudden, with John McCain, you just bond. I mean, there's something about his energy level that goes up. He starts talking, starts asking me about my background. Of course, I, not knowing him that well, asked him about his, and before I knew it, we felt very comfortable with each other going back and forth. So then I got enough nerve to ask him. I said, Congressman, what was it that allowed you to be in a prisoner of war camp? I mean, what kept you together? And he said, well, he goes, you know, most people ask me how they treated me, and obviously they treated me pretty bad. He goes, but he said, one is my faith in God, my love for my family, and my faith in my country. He said, those things kept me together. So we kept talking that evening, and as I thought about that discussion, and for this talk, I wanted to reflect with you a reading from Corinthians 13, which I think captures Senator John McCain. Corinthians 13. Though I should give away to the poor all that I possess, and even give up my body to be burned, if I am without love, it will do me no good whatever. When you think about an individual like Senator McCain, who suffered, who was in prison, was injured, and yet with all that was able to keep his faith together, his focus on his country, focus on his family. I believe that that period of time, those 5 years, is where God molded this fantastic hero, where God took an opportunity to humble this young man who came from a military family. God used those minutes, those hours, those days, those years to put together a human being that we'll be talking about, the senator for generations. John McCain was a person who loved, with his energy, who loved all of us, who loved his country. That evening while we were having dinner, he said, when we get back to Phoenix, we need to get together and have dinner. And of course, back then I was pretty cocky. So I said, well, Congressman, I know a number of congressmen and I know a couple of senators, and you know, we always hear that. He says, well, no, when you get back, you give me a date and I'll be there. I said, well, I'm going to invite you to my house. Us Mexican Americans love to cook, and we love to have folks at our homes if you're really going to be a friend. And he chuckled. So a couple of months later, when I got back home, we called, set up a dinner at the house. And of course, I was preparing carne asada, frijolitos, arroz, tortillas, and all the stuff that you all know about. And my homemade salsa. And I get a call from his office. They say he's running late. So I asked, what's the problem? I said, well, it's his birthday. He wanted to spend a little bit of time with his family. Sorry, Cindy. And of course, I panic and say, you know, if he wants to cancel, I understand, please. They said, no. He made it very clear to us, he's going to your house tonight to have dinner. So I scrambled and got a mariachi group. I figured I got to do something really good. Mexican food's not going to get me there. And luckily, they got there about 10 minutes before he arrived. So when Cindy and the congressman then walk into my house, the kitchen, the mariachi start playing. They sing in the mañanitas, which is a traditional Mexican birthday song in our culture. And of course, John and Cindy lit up, and it was a great evening, and we enjoyed the night. That's Senator John McCain. Keeps his word. That's the senator that we've had all these years that sometimes we beat up on. That's the senator that I hope people can embrace what he stood for our country. And yes, he was a maverick. In his first senatorial campaign, I get a call, and it's him on the phone. I'm with Father Tony, a dear friend of mine, and they say you got the congressman on the phone. I don't know how he tracked me down, but we're in a restaurant. So I get the phone, and he says, Tommy, I'm running for the U.S. Senate. I'm going to launch, blah, blah, blah. You know, John, he was going 100 miles an hour. So I'm going like, okay. And then he says, I want you to co-chair my campaign. I said, well, John, you know I'm a Democrat. I'm not sure that's going to help you with your Republican campaign. I said, I don't care. You're my friend. I want you to co-chair it. I said, well, let me sleep on it. No. You give me an answer right now, yes or no. And of course, I said yes. Once again, Senator John McCain. He goes over to the other side. And don't forget, I was like an activist back then. I was running Chicanos por la Causa. I mean, we were not the most liberal organization or the most conservative organization in the country. And we go back and forth with John. You either were a friend or not. And at the end of the day, we could go a couple of years without seeing each other. But when we did, it was like old home week. I mean, he was warm, he was energy. I mean, he was going 100 miles an hour, but yet he made time to be with you. And then the second time, we get a call, Elvira and I, to come to Las Vegas. And this is, of course, when he's in his presidential campaign. And we end up in Las Vegas with his two right-hand folks that have always run his campaigns, which I have the greatest respect for. So we do the quick chit-chat, and then John says, I want you to speak on my behalf at the Republican convention. I said, Senator, I want to remind you I'm a Democrat. I don't care. I want you there. So you're my friend, I want you there. I said, yes, I'll be there. He said, well, he says, with a big smile on his face, watch out when you start your car. I said, okay, Senator, I'll do that. So John kind of put me out on the national scene. And I must confess, he did a number of things that I could stand here all day and share with you different stories. I will tell you that one time when we met is when Megan was on the TV program, and I don't even remember the name of the TV program, Megan, but he said, well, you know, Megan's on TV now, and blah, blah, blah. I go, yeah, okay. Do you see her? No, Senator, I don't watch TV that much. Well, you start watching her. Okay. So that was our great senator. As we were walking out, he asked my wife, Elvira, he says, Elvira, I got a question for you. If I put a woman on our ticket as vice president, what do you think about that? Well, my wife isn't the type that holds back. She's a Mexican from Mexico City, and they have a tendency of just telling you how it is. And of course, the senator liked that. So she turns and she says, well, I really don't care if it's a man or a woman. If something happens to you, I want to make sure that person can run the country. So John looked at her and says, okay. And he looked at his two guys, and of course we walked out. Needless to say, we heard later who had selected. But again, regardless, there was the senator again, taking the risk of putting forth a woman for vice president of this great country of ours. So it's of no surprise. It's of no surprise also that he got together with Kennedy to push forth immigration reform. Because when he talked about immigration, it wasn't so much the politics of it. He would say, you know what, I can't believe these families that come from another country, from Mexico, from Central America to work, cutting our grass, feeding us, bringing in the labor force that we need, and now we turn on them? That really struck at the heart of what he thought our great country was about. I believe it cost him a presidential campaign. So to me, it's very dear what the senator is about. To me, John really did reflect our country in its true form. My father is a Marine, passed away in February. Once a Marine, always a Marine, he'd say. Got wounded in Guam, got a Purple Heart. When he talked about John McCain, he said, he understands us. He understands us. And I must confess, he did understand us. He understood all of us, whether it was white, black, brown, Asian. To him, it didn't make any difference. What he knew is that we all make America great. We all make America great. So I hope that in his legacy, the senators, governors, mayors, city council members, elected officials embrace the thought of love, because John reflected love and love of a strong man. And that is nowadays hard to come by. So his legacy will go on for generations, because people will talk about Senator John McCain as one of the greatest heroes in our lifetime. And with that, if you permit me, read Timothy 2. As for me, my life is already being poured away as a libation, and the time has come for me to depart. I have fought the good fight to the end. I have run the race to the finish. I have kept the faith. My dear friend, vaya con Dios. Gracias.
I fell in love with my country when I was a prisoner in someone else's. Senator McCain spoke these heartfelt words as he accepted the Republican nomination for president in 2008. They were the words of an authentic American hero. We all know how the story goes. A fiery Navy pilot shot down by the North Vietnamese over a lake near Hanoi. As his planes went out of control, he bailed out just in time to plunge into the lake below. That pilot, a young John McCain, was taken hostage as a prisoner of war, where he spent more than 5.5 years, almost 2,000 days. He would endure countless beatings, torture, solitary confinement, and mental and emotional anguish that none of us will ever have to endure. After getting to know Senator McCain, I felt compelled to visit Vietnam. I wanted to see the places where the will of John McCain was tested and forged. I saw the lake. I walked the steps. I sat in the cell. And the ordeal that my friend survived became all the more real. Many people might wonder what a young African-American kid from Minnesota and a highly decorated Vietnam War hero turned United States Senator might have in common. Well, I thought of a few. I'm black, he was white. I'm young, he wasn't so young. He lived with physical limitations brought on by war. I'm a professional athlete. He ran for president, I run out of bounds. He was the epitome of toughness, and I do everything I can to avoid contact. I have flowing locks, and well, he didn't. How does this unlikely pair become friends? I've asked myself the same question. But do you know what the answer is? That's just who he is. Over the several years, I had the privilege of spending time with Senator McCain. Sometimes it was just a visit to our practices. Other times it was him texting and saying, "Oh, you need to pick it up this Sunday." I'm thankful that through these moments, the opportunity that we had to share our lives, and more importantly, our stories. While from very different worlds, we developed a meaningful friendship. And this highlights the very rare and very special qualities of Senator McCain that I came to deeply admire. He didn't judge individuals based on the color of their skin, their gender, their backgrounds, their political affiliations, or their bank accounts. He evaluated them on the merits of their character and the contents of their hearts. He judged them on the work they put in and the principles they lived by. It was this approach to humanity that made Senator John McCain so respected by countless people around the world, including me. His accomplishments were many: U.S. Senator, presidential candidate, statesman, warrior, and hero. His work ethic, tireless. His fight, legendary. But what made Senator McCain so special was that he cared about the substance of my heart, more so than where I came from. While some might find our friendship out of the ordinary, it was a perfect example of what made him an iconic figure of American politics and service to fellow man. He celebrated differences. He embraced humanity, championed what was true and just, and saw people for who they were. Yes, ours was an unlikely friendship, but it's one that I will always cherish. I've had the honor of attending several of the Sedona forums hosted by Senator McCain and his remarkable wife, Cindy. There were world leaders in politics, business, science, and education to discuss the most pressing matters of our time. Issues like healthcare, global warming, technology, and human trafficking. These leaders gathered to find real solutions, and they gathered because Senator McCain asked them to be there. His devotion to making Arizona, the United States, and the whole world a better place for everyone has inspired countless leaders, like those at the Sedona Forums. I'm confident his legacy of devotion and to the common good will continue to inspire people around the world long after today. A few years ago, he was kind enough to take me on a personal tour of the U.S. Senate. It was obvious that Senator McCain was highly regarded. He believed to be right and was good regardless of which political side of the aisle his opinion fell on. I saw how respected he was and how much admiration he commanded from people from across the political spectrum. But that admiration wasn't surprising because Senator McCain was known as a man of integrity and conviction. A man who at times, just as he sacrificed himself for his fellow POWs in Vietnam, willingly chose to sacrifice his own political gains in order to accomplish what he believed was best for all. As a result of this type of sacrifice, he may have lost the support of a political ally here and there, but he gained the respect and admiration of an entire nation. In closing, I'd like to honor the love I saw in Senator McCain. He loved the people of Arizona, serving them passionately and diligently for decades. He took that same love to Washington and boldly advocated for the freedoms and liberties he had grown to love as a young Navy pilot. But the love I saw most was the love he had for his wife, Cindy, and his children. I heard him speak about them often, and the love always came pouring through in every word. Senator McCain, it's been a true honor to call you friend. Your toughness and bravery inspired us. Your sacrifice enriched our lives. Your devotion to the people of Arizona, our nation, and your convictions won our admiration. Your love set an example for all of us to follow. Jackie Robinson once said, "A life is not important except in the impact that it has on other lives." Senator McCain, we will miss the blessings of being in your presence, but we will never forget the impact you had on the world, and more importantly, on each of the lives that you touched. We are all better for having known you. Rest in peace, my friend.
My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democrat. And I love John McCain. I have had the dubious honor over the years of giving some eulogies for fine women and men that I've admired. But Lindsay, this one's hard. The three men who have spoken before me, I think, captured John, different aspects of John, in a way that only someone close to him could understand. But the way I look at it, the way I thought about it, was that I always thought of John as a brother. We had a hell of a lot of family fights. We go back a long way. I was a young United States Senator. I got elected when I was 29, and I had the dubious distinction of being put on the Foreign Relations Committee, which the next youngest person was 14 years older than me. And I spent a lot of time traveling the world because I was assigned a responsibility. My colleagues in the Senate know I was chairman of the European Affairs Subcommittee. So I spent a lot of time on NATO and then the Soviet Union. And along came a guy a couple years later, a guy I knew of, admired from afar, your husband, who had been a prisoner of war, who had endured enormous, enormous pain and suffering, and demonstrated the code, the McCain Code. People don't think much about it today, but imagine having already known the pain you were likely to endure and being offered the opportunity to go home, but saying no. As the son can tell you, the Navy, last one in, last one out. So I knew of John, and John became the Navy liaison officer in the United States Senate. There was an office, then it used to be on the basement floor, of members of the military who are assigned to senators when they travel abroad to meet with heads of state or other foreign dignitaries. And John had been recently released from Hanoi Hilton, a genuine hero, and he became the Navy liaison. For some reason, we hit it off from the beginning. We were both full of dreams and ambitions and an overwhelming desire to make the time we had there worthwhile, to try to do the right thing, to think about how we could make things better for the country we love so much. And John and I ended up traveling. Every time I went anywhere, I took John with me, or John took me with him. And we were in China, Japan, Russia, Germany, France, England, Turkey, all over the world. Tens of thousands of miles. And we would sit on that plane and late in the night when everyone else was asleep and just talk, getting to know one another. We talk about family. We talk about politics. We talk about international relations. We talk about promise, the promise of America, because we're both cockeyed optimists and really believe that there's not a single thing beyond the capacity of this country. I mean, for real, not a single thing. And when you get to know another woman or man, you get to know their hopes and their fears. You get to know their family even before you meet them. You get to know how they feel about really important things. We talked about everything except captivity and the loss of my family, which had just occurred, my wife and daughter. Only two things we didn't talk about. But I found that it wasn't too long into John's duties that Jill and I got married, and Jill is here with me today. 5 years I had been a single dad, and no man deserves one great love, let alone two. And I met Jill, who changed my life, and she fell in love with him and he with her. He'd always call her, as Lindsay later would travel with, he'd call her Jilly. And matter of fact, when they'd get bored being with me on these trips, I remember going to see Karen and Lise in Greece, and he said, "Why don't I just take Jill to dinner?" I later learned that they're down on a cafe at the port, and he has her dancing on top of a cement table drinking ouzo. Not a joke. Jilly. Right, Jilly? So, we got to know each other well, and he loved my son Bo and my son Hunt. As a young man, he came up to my house. He'd come up to Wilmington, and out of this grew a great friendship that transcended whatever political differences we had or later developed, because above all, we understood the same thing. All politics is personal. It's all about trust. And I trusted John with my life, and I would, and I think he would trust me with his. We both knew then from our different experiences that, and as our life progressed, we learned even more, that there are times when life can be so cruel, pain so blinding, it's hard to see anything else. The disease that took John's life, took our mutual friend's Teddy's life, the exact same disease 9 years ago, a couple days ago. And 3 years ago, it took my beautiful son Bo's life. It's brutal. It's relentless. It's unforgiving. And it takes so much from those we love and from the families who love them that in order to survive, we have to remember how they lived, not how they died. I carry with me an image of Bo sitting out on a little lake we live on, starting a motor on a little boat and smiling and waving. Not the last days. I'm sure Vicki Kennedy has her own image, maybe seeing Teddy looking so alive on his sailboat out in the Cape. And for the family, you will all find your own images, whether it's remembering his smile or his laugh or a touch in the shoulder or just running his hand down your cheek. Or just feeling like someone's looking at you and turning and see him just smiling at you from a distance, just looking at you. Or when you saw the seared joy that crossed his face the moment he knew he was about to get up and take a stage in the Senate floor and start a fight. God, he loved it. So to Cindy and to the kids, Doug, Andy, Sydney, Megan, Jack, Jimmy, Bridget, and I know she's not here, but to Mrs. McCain, we know how difficult it is to bury a child, Mrs. McCain. My heart goes out to you. And I know right now the pain you all are feeling is so sharp and so hollowing. And John's absence is all-consuming for all of you right now. It's like being sucked into a black hole inside your chest. And it's frightening. But I know something else, unfortunately, from experience, that there's nothing anyone can say or do to ease the pain right now. But I pray you take some comfort, knowing that because you shared John with all of us your whole life, the world now shares with you the ache of John's death. Look around this magnificent church. Look what you saw coming at the state capitol yesterday. It's hard to stand there, but part of it was. At least it was for me with Bo standing in the state capitol. You knew. It was genuine. It was deep. He touched so many lives. And I've gotten calls, not just because people knew we were friends, not just from people around the country, but leaders around the world calling me. Megan, I'm getting all these sympathy letters. I mean, hundreds of them, and tweets. Character is destiny. John had character. While others will miss his leadership and his passion, even his stubbornness, you're going to miss that hand on your shoulder. The family, you're going to miss the man, the faithful man, as he was, who you would literally, not figuratively, give his life for you. And for that, there's no balm but time. Time in your memories of a life lived well and lived fully. But I make you a promise. I promise you. The time will come. Because what's going to happen is 6 months will go by and everybody's going to think, well, it's past. But you're going to ride by that field or smell that fragrance or see that flashing image. And you're going to feel like you did the day you got the news. But you know you're going to make it when the image of your dad, your husband, your friend crosses your mind and a smile comes to your lip before a tear to your eye. That's who you know. And I promise you, I give you my word, I promise you, this I know. That day will come. That day will come. You know, I'm sure my former colleagues and all who work with John, I'm sure there's people who have said to you, not only now, but the last 10 years, explain this guy to me. Right? Explain this guy to me. Because as they looked at him, in one sense they admired him, but in one sense, the way things have changed so much in America, they look at him as if John came from another age, that he lived by a different code, an ancient, antiquated code where honor, courage, character, integrity, duty, where it mattered, because that was obvious how John lived his life. But the truth is, John's code was ageless, is ageless. When you talked earlier, Grant, you talked about values. It wasn't about politics with John. He could disagree on substance, but it was the underlying values that animated everything John did, everything he was. He'd come to a different conclusion. But where he'd part company with you, if you lack the basic values of decency, respect, knowing that this project is bigger than yourself. John's story is the American story. That's not hyperbole. It sounds like it's the American story, grounded in respect and decency, basic fairness, the intolerance for the abuse of power. Many of you have traveled the world. Look how the rest of the world, until recently, looks at us. They look at us as a little naive. We're so fair. We're so decent. We're the naive Americans. But that's who we are. That's who John was. And he could not stand the abuse of power wherever he saw it, in whatever form, in whatever country. It's always about basic values, John: fairness, honesty, dignity, respect, giving hate no safe harbor, leaving no one behind, and understanding that as Americans we're part of something much bigger than ourselves. With John, it was a value set that was neither selfish nor self-serving. John understood that America was first and foremost an idea, audacious and risky, organized around not tribe, but around ideals. Think of how he approached every issue. The ideals that Americans have rallied around for over 200 years, the ideals that the world has repaired to. An idea enshrined in the Constitution. Sounds corny. We hold these truths self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. To John, those words had meaning, as they had for every great patriot that has ever served this country. We both love the Senate. Proudest years of my life for being a United States Senator. And I was honored to be Vice President, but being a United States Senator. And we both lamented watching it change. During long debates in the 80s and 90s, as some of the colleagues who were around then would know, I'd always go over and sit next to John, next to his seat. Or he'd come over on the Democratic side and sit next to me. No, I'm not joking. Because we'd sit there and we'd talk to each other. And I can remember the day when I came out to see John, we reminisced about it. It was in '96. And we were about to adjourn for what we call the caucuses. There's a luncheon once a week that all the Democratic senators have lunch together and all the Republican senators. And we both went into our caucus, and coincidentally, we were approached by our caucus leaders with the same thing. It was raised as a discussion. Joe, it doesn't look good you sit next to John all the time on there. Swear to God. Same thing was said to John in your caucus. That's when things began to change for the worse in America, in the Senate. That's when it changed. What happened was, at those times, it was always appropriate to challenge another senator's judgment, but never appropriate to challenge their motive. When you challenge their motive, it's impossible to get to go. If I say you're doing this because you're being paid off, if I say you're doing this because you're not a good Christian, if I say you're doing this because you're this, that, or the other thing, it's impossible to reach consensus. Think about it in your personal lives. But all we do today is attack the oppositions in both parties, their motives, not the substance of their argument. This was the mid-90s. Well, it began to go downhill from there. The last day, John was on the Senate floor. What was he fighting to do? He was fighting to restore what we call regular order, to start to treat one another again like we used to. Senate was never perfect, John. You know that. We were there a long time together. But I'd watch Teddy Kennedy and James O. Eastland fight like hell on civil rights, and they'd go have lunch together down in the Senate dining room. John wanted to see, quote, regular order writ large, get to know one another. You know, John and I were both amused, and I think Lindsay was at one of these events where John and I received two prestigious awards. The last year I was vice president, and then one immediately after, for our dignity and respect we showed to one another. We received an award for civility in public life. There's a college, Allegheny County college puts out this prestigious award every year for bipartisanship. And John and I look at each other and say, what in the hell's going on here? No, not a joke. I say to Senator Flake, that's how it's always supposed to be. You're getting an award? No, I'm serious. Think about this. Getting an award for your civility. Getting an award for bipartisanship. In classic John, the one at Allegheny College, there were hundreds of people there, and we got the award. And John, the Senate was in session, and so he spoke first. And as he walked off the stage and I walked on, he looked at me and said, Joe, don't take it personal, but I just don't want to hear what the hell you have to say. And left. One of John's major campaign people is now with the Senate, with the governor of Ohio, was on this morning. I happened to watch it, and he said that Biden and McCain had this strange relationship. They always seemed to have each other's back. Whenever I was in trouble, John was the first guy there. And I hope I was there for him. And we never hesitate to give each other advice. He'd call me in the middle of a campaign and say, what the hell did you say that for? Well, not an issue. Like, you just screwed up, Joe, you know? And I'd occasionally call him. Look, I've been thinking this week about why John's death has hit the country so hard. Yes, he was a long-serving senator with a remarkable record. Yes, he was a two-time presidential candidate who captured the support and imagination of the American people. And yes, John was a war hero who demonstrated extraordinary courage. I think of John, and I must say my son, when I think of Ingersoll's words, when the will defies fear, when duty throws the gauntlet down to fate, when honor scorns to compromise with death, that is heroism. Everybody knows that about John. But I don't think it fully explains why the country has been so taken by John's passing. I think it's something more intangible. I think it's because they knew John believed so deeply and so passionately in the soul of America that he made it easier for them to have confidence and faith in America. His faith in the core values of this nation made them somehow feel it more genuinely themselves. His conviction that we as a country would never walk away from the sacrifices generations of Americans have made to defend liberty and freedom and human dignity around the world. It made average Americans proud of themselves and their country. His belief, and it was deep, that Americans can do anything, withstand anything, achieve anything, was both unflagging and ultimately reassuring if this man believed that so strongly. His capacity that we truly are the world's last best hope, that we're the beacon to the world, that there are principles and ideals greater than ourselves and worth suffering, sacrificing for, and if necessary, dying for. Americans saw how he lived his life that way, and they knew the truth of what he was saying. I just think he gave Americans confidence. John was a hero. His character, courage, honor, integrity. But I think the thing that's understated the most is his optimism. That's what made John special. Made John a giant among all of us. But in my view, John didn't believe that America's future and fate rested on heroes. What we used to talk about, and I liked most about him, is he understood what I hope we all remember. Heroes didn't build this country. Ordinary people being given half a chance are capable of doing extraordinary things. Extraordinary things. John knew ordinary Americans understood that each of us has a duty to defend the integrity, dignity, and birthright of every child. They carry it. That good communities are built by thousands of small acts of decency that Americans, as I speak today, show each other every single day. That buried deep in the DNA of this nation's soul lies a flame that was lit over 200 years ago, that each of us carries with us, and each one of us has the capacity, the responsibility, and we can screw up the courage to ensure that's not extinguished. And it's 1,000 little things that make us different. The bottom line was, I think John believed in us. I think he believed in the American people. Not just all the preambles, the Constitution. He believed in the American people. All 325 million of us. And even though John is no longer with us, he left us pretty clear instructions. Quote, believe always in the promise and greatness of America, because nothing is inevitable here. Close to the last thing John said to the whole nation as he knew he was about to depart. That's what he wanted America to understand. Not to build his legacy, he wanted America to remind them to understand. I think John's legacy is going to continue to inspire and challenge generations of leaders as they step forward. And John McCain's impact on America is not over. It's not hyperbole. It is not over. I don't think it's even close. Cindy, John owed so much of what he was to you. You were his ballast when I was ever with you both, I could just see how he looked at you. Jill's the one when we were in Hawaii and he first met you there, he kept staring at you, and Jill finally said, "Go up and talk to her." And Doug and Andy, Sydney, Megan, Jack, Jimmy, Bridget, you may not have had your father as long as you would have liked, but you got from him everything you need to pursue your own dreams, to follow the course of your own spirit. You are a living legacy, not hyperbole. You're a living legacy and proof of John McCain's success. Now John's going to take his rightful place in a long line of extraordinary leaders in this nation's history who in their time and in their way stood for freedom and stood for liberty and have made the American story the most improbable and the most hopeful and the most enduring story on earth. I know John said he hoped he played a small part in that story. John, you did much more than that, my friend. To paraphrase Shakespeare, we shall not see his like again.
The second reading is from 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 6 through 8. For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time for my departure is near. I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing.
Mountains, deserts, and streams, the rise of Dos Cabezas, and the outlaws I see in my dreams. I love you, Arizona. Superstitions and all, the warmth you give at sunrise, your sunsets put music in us all. Ooh, Arizona, you're the magic in me. Ooh, Arizona, you're the lifeblood of me. I love you, Arizona. Desert dust in the wind, the sage and cactus blooming, and the smell of the rain on your skin. Ooh, Arizona, you're the magic in me. Ooh,
Jesus, at the final meal he shared with his friends, charged them, remember me. Remember me in the breaking of the bread. Bread has to be broken to be shared. We are celebrating today the life of a man who unselfishly was broken that we might be one again. John McCain, our brother, Jesus' brother. To remember, to bring together John McCain, I invite you to share the words of Henry Scott Holland. Laugh as we always laughed at jokes we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever that household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effect, without a trace of shadow on it. We pray, Lord God, may John McCain's vision be in our eyes, his voice in our words and our tongue, his listening to the needs of others in our ears, his love for his country in our hearts. Bless you, John McCain, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
As we come to a close, I'd like to read some words that were beautifully written by his daughter Megan. My father is gone, and I miss him as only an adoring daughter can. But in this loss and in this sorrow, I take comfort in this. John McCain, hero of the Republic, and to his little girl, wakes today to something more glorious than anything on this earth. Today, the warrior enters his true and eternal life, greeted by those who have gone before him. And she writes, rising to meet the author of all things. We will grieve, we will mourn, but I want you to think about her words. In this very moment, Senator John McCain is in heaven with God the Father and Jesus the Son. No more cancer, no more pain, no more sickness, no more burdens of this world. In fact, his biggest concern is probably, what channel do I have to find in heaven in order to watch Larry play on Sundays? All joking aside, he's a free man and he's more alive than he's ever been. See, Senator McCain professed Christianity. And here's the hope in what Senator McCain believed. He knew Romans 3:23. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. He knew Romans 6:23. That the wages of sin was death, but the gift of God was eternal life through his Son, Jesus Christ. So the hope that we have is the good news that Senator John McCain believed this passage from John 3:16. That for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that who believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. When we grieve and when we mourn, understand that he has eternal life and he is with the Father in heaven because of his faith in Jesus Christ. That is something to find comfort in. That is the reason why Megan can write these words so beautifully. Let us pray together. Father, as we leave from this place, we ask you to give comfort to Cindy and the family. As Vice President Joe Biden said, there will be days that the freshness of this lostness hits them hard, Father. And in those moments, Lord, when they find themselves by themselves mourning this deep pain and sorrow, will you comfort them, God? Will you give them the strength they need to walk every single day? Cain, believe that you sent your only Son to walk this earth and live a sinless life, to die on the cross for our sins, for the things that we deserved. And he believed that Jesus Christ was put in the tomb and he rose again, and he defeated death. That is a reason to celebrate, and that is a reason for us to have comfort. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I want to thank you all again on the behalf of the McCain family for being here and supporting them. At this moment, we're going to ask you to stay seated until the entire family has exited the building.
And now the end is near, so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it here, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway. More, much more than this, I did it my way.
Senator John McCain, his memory, his legacy embodied in a song, Frank Sinatra's My Way. The lyrics poignant here. Ernie Calderon joining me as well. What do we think after watching the service here?
Well, I think the most poignant message was Joe Biden's part of his message, where he talked about the lack of civility and the lack of collegiality, and how a lot of the senators asked him, explain this McCain guy to me. Well, he did explain that McCain, through the service and like, was somebody who believed in cooperative work. And the John McCain that we got to know at the end did it his way.
Right. The former vice president at times sounded like he was on the campaign trail, voice elevated, but not campaigning really for any personal position, rather a set of ideals held by John McCain during his time, especially in the U.S. Senate, of working for bipartisanship. Again, he talked about his friendship with McCain, how they would sit next to one another, something that oftentimes seems lost in American politics when it's polarized.
Genuine love
Sure.
and friendship there. And of course, Joe Biden lost his son to the same disease, so
Right.
Every reminder must be coming back.
We had a lot of humor, of course, Larry Fitzgerald speaking there. Just some great moments of laughter and levity, as well as the somber moments too. Senator McCain's memorial here is wrapping up. From there, again, we will see another motorcade as the senator's body is taken to Sky Harbor. It will then fly back east. Of course, the service is taking place in and around the nation's capital. Tomorrow, he will lie in state in the Capitol Rotunda. Saturday, the funeral. Presidents Obama and Bush will give a eulogy. We will have that live for you right here on ABC 15. Again, the funeral, I know we liked the Arizona song. If you haven't heard that before, the I Love You Arizona, written by Rex Allen Jr. I'm from Wilcox.
You ought to sing it.
Boy, I could. Rex Allen Jr. has been here to the station and we've sung it together. And the lyrics, again, we talked about touching the different corners of the state of Arizona. He says the rise of Dos Cabezas. He talks about the superstitions and outlaws. And it's very, if there's anything more Arizona, I don't know what it is, than that song, and then the pictures that they had of Sedona, of course, along Oak Creek, one of Senator McCain's favorite spots in all the world, near Cottonwood and Cornville.
Well, he truly loved Arizona, and he was proud to represent Arizona, and he represented us not only in his official capacity, but in his personal capacity, a strong independent, someone who some of the people that spoke about how he had a sense of what was right and what was wrong, and he fought for the underdog. I think we Arizonans like to embrace that. We are independent people, and we do want to see what's right. We do want to see it happen, and I think Tommy Espinosa and Grant Woods added a little bit of humor to it as well. But they pointed that out, and I think that was wonderful.
Well, and if anything, we got those anecdotal stories to know John McCain a little more personally. Kaylee and Steve, that's what we like to hear, is those interpersonal moments, not just the official senator, presidential candidate.
Dan, we're standing out here outside of Phoenix Baptist Church, and we are watching Senator John McCain being loaded into the hearse by the Honor Guard, and it is quite emotional out here, to say the least. But to listen to some of the tributes today inside that service, resonating the personality of John McCain. Of course, emotional at times, but a wonderful sense of humor there as well from all the people who spoke of it.
The words that ring in my head over and over again are the words of the former vice president. Character is destiny.
Yes.
It is the personification of John McCain. Character was more important than politics. Character was everything. He's often been quoted as saying, character is what makes you happy or unhappy, and it is what you choose. And character was the reason behind John McCain's friendship with the former vice president, a Democrat, somebody who often led the opposition in the Senate, who was part of the ticket that defeated John McCain in 2008, and yet they were the very best of friends.
And remember when former Vice President Joe Biden looked right at the family and he said, what you're seeing with these people here in Arizona, it's deep, it's sincere, it's emotional, and it's real. And then he sat there for a moment. He seemed to look at each and every member of the McCain family, and that was powerful.
It was a powerful tribute. It was filled with wonderful moments of humor, too, which I thought was amazing. Larry Fitzgerald talking about how they were two people from completely different backgrounds. Senator McCain ran for president, I ran out of bounds. Those kinds of jokes that just resonated with the entire crowd, and you have to say that John McCain would have approved of the moments of wit and humor in this service.
Yeah, guys, Ernie here with me saying he remembers past funerals of Arizona dignitaries. Ernie, the last senators to hold this position.
Well, I remember vividly the '69 funeral of Carl Hayden with Lyndon May Johnson outside of Gammon's Auditorium with protesters yelling at LBJ, but at LBJ saying it was important that he come here to honor Carl Hayden. And then Barry Goldwater's funeral in '80, also part of it at Gamage. Here today, we have a plethora of people, but 24 United States senators, some national leaders. I know the head of the, Armando Contreras, the head of the National Cerebral Palsy organizations here. A lot of the people that, from the charities that John McCain helped, are here to pay homage.
Certainly.
And this does rival Barry Goldwater's, it does rival Carl Hayden's farewells. I think just one last thing to note is in John McCain's book, his last book, he says, I know the bell tolls for me. He had the love of Hemingway and For Whom the Bell Tolls. And he said, I hope the people that remember me will celebrate. Will celebrate what I did and what I got to celebrate. Even the people that didn't like me, he said, I hope when they think of me, they celebrate. And this is a celebration of Arizona.
And we talked about that imperfect life. He knew he led an imperfect life and didn't wish for anybody to set him up on that pedestal. Joe Biden there with his wife, Jill, the former vice president, again speaking very highly of his flawed friend, right? They talked about the fights that they would get into, and then they would feel comfortable still being friends. Cindy McCain there. Everyone loading up. The family will be heading now, of course, with this motorcade to head to the 161st Air Refueling Wing. That's at Sky Harbor, the Arizona Air National Guard, as the senator will have somewhat of a ceremony there as well, to then be boarding that flight off to a joint base Andrews in Maryland. Of course, as we've mentioned, all of those ceremonial things that will take place over the next 2 to 3 days and throughout the weekend, actually, for the McCain family and for the nation to remember as well. But of course, as you said, Ernie, a lot of people coming right here. They wanted to be part of the Arizona ceremony as well.
This is a wonderful outpouring. I know a lot of our viewers did not get a chance to go to the funeral and be there, and hopefully we provided a good flavor of it. But this is history. You were seeing history.
Yeah.
If you go to Carl Hayden's grave now, it's down near 10th Butte, you will see a simple little grave marker that says Carl T. Hayden, the year he was born and the year he died. You'll know nothing more about him if you didn't know it before. Thanks to the media, who people like to bash. But the media, thanks to the media, we get to know about what John McCain did for this country and what we did for this country indirectly through John McCain representatives.
We will certainly not forget the name of John McCain. Steve and Kaylee?
You know, Dan, you're talking about, you use the word sorrow, and there is definitely that feeling of sorrow out here. But from everything we heard, from all of the people who spoke today, from people we talked to before the service, I don't believe that that's what John McCain would want us to feel. I think he would want us to be celebrating his life and everything. I believe he wouldn't take credit for it, but everything collectively, he would say that so many people have done for our state and this nation.
John believed in the soul of America. Those were the words of Joe Biden in sending John off. He believed in the people of America. He believed in civility. He believed in bringing people together to solve problems and to tackle the most important issues. And I think he would have approved of this particular service, bringing so many people of different backgrounds together. Tommy Espinosa, somebody who often differed with John McCain on issues, for instance, of immigration, yet they were the best of friends. Joe Biden, a political foe, they were the best of friends. Larry Fitzgerald, somebody of an entirely different generation, different color, obviously, that Larry humorously pointed out, and yet they all became good friends. And that was the kind of person that John McCain was, a rare politician, a rare leader in these times.
Grant Wood's also quite powerful with his speech. It was in every way, and I'm sure that he himself had a lot of say in how this day would be, and it was impressive.
It was interesting, so many people said the same thing about John McCain, that he was somebody who was more interested in who you were as a person than what your status was, what your power was, anything like that. And Larry said he cared about the substance of my heart. It's hard to imagine that somebody who became so powerful never forgot the idea that he still was someone who came from humble beginnings.
Yes. And it feels as though you see that legacy being carried on with his family. And we certainly felt that today here.
Now watching this hearse and the motorcade make its way out of North Phoenix Baptist Church. We're watching Red Cross volunteers, dozens of people as well, on the corner there, taking pictures, saying their final goodbye. Within just an hour or so, John McCain will leave Arizona for the final time. This is a state that has bid its farewell to its favorite adopted son, somebody that, like so many of us, came from somewhere else and at the same time became such a part of the fabric of this state.
And looking at that hearse, I don't know about you, Stephen, watching Cindy McCain walk away, there was a definite silence here, almost a deafening, because John McCain loves this state so much, knowing that these were the final moments that he would be here. That was the moment that was truly sad.
I think we watched Cindy McCain actually make her way to the vehicle and got out again and wanted to make sure that she embraced Joe Biden, she embraced Grant Wood, she wanted to make sure that all of those people were still a part of this service and wanted to say their goodbyes to them as well. Of course, this motorcade is going to make its way to Sag Harbor and the Air National Guard refueling wing. From there on to Joint Base Andrews in Washington, D.C. That memorial service also going to take place on Saturday and then the interment on Sunday. And we watched this motorcade make its way all the way up here, and dozens and dozens of people lining the streets, waving American flags, waving those old McCain campaign signs. There's fierce loyalty to what John McCain represented, not to who he was as a politician, not to his party necessarily, who he was and what he represented in this state.
Our Melissa Blasius was out along the trail a little earlier, and speaking to so many people whom John McCain had touched, talking about how John McCain had shaped everyday people's careers, and you will hear more about those stories coming up a little later here on ABC 15 this afternoon. But just to hear again everyday people who are sharing these wonderful stories, it's just touching.
Mike O'Neill, you've listening to some of this service. It is what John McCain would have wanted.
Well, We know that he had a major role in planning it, so I don't think we have to speculate about that. You know, at a human level, I'm just in awe of the family. You know, most all of us have buried somebody that was dear to us, and you know that by the end of a ceremony, how completely drained you are. This family is going through 4 or 5 of those. Yes. This has to be at some point just brutal beyond belief. But you know, there's 2 sets of ceremonies that were more or less concluded. The Arizona, a series of events, but there's going to be a parallel set of events in the nation's capital, and so for the family, this continues.
It seems like a natural extension, though, because the McCain family always shared John McCain with the country and the rest of the world. And so
and Joe Biden did speak to that, thanking them for that, which was really wonderful. We were talking about Melissa Iglesias, who was out along the trail. She's with us now. Can you share more about some of the stories that you were able to capture this morning?
Oh, yes. In fact, we were talking to some people as they were coming into the funeral service. There was a great number. I've been watching everyone come out as well now behind me. We talked to some of our younger local politicians, people who have looked up to and admired Senator John McCain for a long time. In fact, basically, if you are involved in any way in the political world in our great state, you were here today to be here to celebrate Senator John McCain. Let's listen to what some of those folks had to say. Oh, okay. Dan, we'll go back to you for now.
Melissa, thanks. I know so many people have their stories and what they would like to say about John McCain. We've been sharing those stories with you, and Ernie here with me talking about what we're seeing and what we saw. There is Senator McCain making his way with that motorcade towards Sky Harbor. Again, they're running a little behind schedule. It's supposed to take off around 12:30, I believe. So perhaps they're running right on time. But again, the senator had so much to say about what he would want people to view as part of his memorial service. And a lot of people still lining the streets there to say their last goodbyes. But talk about the maverick label of John McCain here. That's something seen as someone who doesn't always toe the line and kind of does his own thing when he feels that the principle calls for it.
Well, when you saw John run for the presidency the first time, you saw very few United States senators or other people reaching out, because he did have a combative style in the Senate. But he always fought for what was right, and you would always see him pair up with somebody on the other side of the aisle.
Right.
Ted Kennedy, for example. John McCain actually died the same date that Ted Kennedy died, only years later. But they partnered together on health care and other things. John McCain's opposition to throwing out all of the Affordable Health Care Act. He paired together with Russ Feingold from Wisconsin,
right,
on campaign reform, because he didn't believe that only rich people should be able to run for office. So you saw that maverick there. I think that came not only from his family tradition, but when you are in uniform, you really don't care what the other person's religion or politics are. Your other service person is your brother or your sister,
right? And
you have to work together for the common mission. And I believed his common mission was, how can we make things better for America?
Our Air 15 view right here. This is on the 51 southbound right now. You just saw them moments ago before the chopper shot went out. That is, they just turned onto the 51. So right around 51 in Camelback right now on the SR-51. They'll make their way toward the mini stack, as it feels like we're doing a kind of a traffic review here, but heading toward Sky Harbor right now.
Hey, good evening, Dan. We are here at Sky Harbor where that motorcade is headed, making its way down the 51. And we can see when it was on the streets of Phoenix, basically those thousands of people just coming out to pay their respects to Senator McCain. And former Vice President Joe Biden asked a really interesting question. He says, why has Senator McCain's death hit this country so hard? And he said that it was something really intangible. He said that America knows that McCain believed in the soul of America, and that is something that a lot of these people could really grab onto and really could relate. A lot of these people are talking about how
McCain really loved Arizona. They talked about his love of the Grand Canyon. He actually hiked it from rim to rim. He explored the Colorado River. And then if you're here in the valley, the chances are you possibly ran into the senator or his family. He was known to go into some of his favorite restaurants. I know that I ran into him at a Starbucks in the Biltmore area shortly before his diagnosis. And it was interesting to just kind of remove yourself, not as a journalist, but just to watch him. And here's a man that ran for president 2 times. He was a prisoner of war and somebody who has served this country for 30 years. And he did not have the motorcade. He did not have that entourage that you're seeing right now, this massive motorcade that they're putting on for the senator. But he just got his coffee and he went on his way. He actually got into a Ford Escape all alone. So I think that is something that just speaks to all of these people that, you know, he is just an Arizonan, just kind of a regular guy that was somewhat accessible. That motorcade is kind of winding its way through the streets of Phoenix. It is going to be coming here to Sky Harbor. This portion of Sky Harbor is actually a military base. They're going to come here. There's going to be a brief but a private ceremony on this military base, and then that jet is going to take off for Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. There's also ceremonies tomorrow, Saturday, and then on Sunday. Tomorrow we know that Senator McCain will lie in state at the state capitol. The public is invited to pay tribute to the senator. There will also be a morning service tomorrow with Vice President Mike Pence, Senator Mitch McConnell, and then Representative Paul Ryan. He is expected to speak tomorrow morning. And then on Saturday, there's going to be another private memorial at Washington National Cathedral, where former President Bush and President Obama also expected to speak. Right now, just a handful of people lining this pretty much a service road out here around Sky Harbor. One person I can see has an American flag. Some folks just kind of taking to the stage, paying their respects to Senator McCain. And what's interesting, seems very final out here. This will be the last time the senator leaves Arizona. Dan.
Justin Pizarro reporting live. Justin, thanks. As you can see, McDowell Road right here as the hearse approaches the mini stack interchange. This is the 202, 51, and the 10 interchange there, just right around Sky Harbor as they approach, kind of close to the ABC 15 studios, in fact. Let's also toss out now to some of our live reporting, our crews all across the valley, just to talk about what the senator really means to the valley and to Arizona as he takes his last steps, if you will, here in our state. All right, Steve, Kaylee.
Thanks so much, Dan. We're joined by Aaron Cohen, president of the Arizona Coyotes. I think by now we all know that John McCain was one of the biggest sports fans that we had for all of the teams here in Arizona. What was it like to have that relationship with him?
It was unbelievable. I mean, first off, he was just such a great person and did so much for this country. He represented and epitomized the best values of our country. And he was our most loyal fan. I was looking at some pictures recently, just over the weekend, of him supporting our team during our playoff run a few years ago. And it was just so wonderful to see the joy. And he was sitting there with Grant Woods, and he was our biggest fan. And you know, we're just hopeful that we could have provided some escape during everything he was going through over the past year, and really just brought him some comfort. But just such a wonderful man.
I remember seeing those cutaway shots when he would be there at the games, and he truly enjoyed those moments. You could tell. You were inside today.
Yeah.
Can you give us sort of? I mean, obviously there were somber moments, but there was a lot of laughter. There was clapping. Just wondering what it was like from your vantage point.
Yeah, it was just so emotional. You know, there was a lot of tears, a lot of happy times, and just hearing the stories that really, you know, brought who he was as a person to life, and you know, just those stories from Grant and from Vice President Biden and from Larry and from everybody. It was just, you just feel the amazing impact that Senator McCain had on so many lives. Not just throughout Arizona, but throughout the world, and just really special and humbling to be a part of.
There was a real healing quality, I think, especially with Vice President Biden's comments, because he has gone through so much of this himself. Did you feel that in the room?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, Vice President Biden's speech was really, I was talking to some of my colleagues, really one of the most impactful, amazing speeches I've ever heard. And, you know, just to hear from his vantage point and everything that he's dealt with, it really touches your heart. And, you know, for all of us that have lost loved ones, you know, just, you know, really hits home and makes you, you know, realize how special everybody is around you, and you know, just value the amazing impact that Senator McCain had on so many lives.
And he took a real opportunity, in addition to honoring his friend, Senator John McCain. It felt as though it was a moment that he took for our nation to say, hey, we can be nice to each other. And the silliness between the two of them saying, we're getting an award for being nice.
Yeah.
What is happening here? I think all of us took a moment to think about that. How simple is this?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Senator McCain is someone I've admired really as long as I can remember, and the way he went about, you know, instilling change and promoting the best values of our country. And I wish we had a lot more of that these days, and I really do think that that was a call to action for all of us to really bring out our best selves and you know, make this country what it's supposed to be.
There were generational gaps, multi-generational gaps, especially with some of the young players that you have on your team and the young players on the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks, and yet he connected with them in a way that seems almost rare. What do you attribute to that?
You know, I think it's just his sense of life and just his you know, excitement for life and vigor. I think everybody can admire that, and just connecting with some of the athletes, with Larry and with Shane Doan, our former player, and you know, I think that everybody can feel invigorated seeing him and seeing how much energy he had throughout his entire life. And also, I just think the story and everything he's gone through in his life, and he's the true American hero. I mean, you think back and you look over his life and his story, and you know, I'm going to be telling my grandchildren about everything he meant to this country and to the state, and to me personally. So, you know, it's really an honor and a privilege to be part of this, and I'll remember this the rest of my life. So, thank you so much.
Appreciate
really
your time
appreciate
today.
it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
An inspiring service, certainly, as we look at the plane that will carry Senator McCain's casket off to Joint Base Andrews and eventually his interment at the Naval Academy in Maryland. That motorcade expected to arrive at Sky Harbor any moment now. A fairly short ride here from the North Phoenix Baptist Church right around Bethany Home in Central down to Sky Harbor Airport. And this is the moment when Arizona says goodbye.
And he is leaving a place that will obviously carry his legacy, his name, right there at Terminal 3.
We'll watch the nation say goodbye, of course, over the weekend, because we shared Senator McCain with the rest of the country and the rest of the world. People all over the world putting out their condolences to the family, putting out messages of love and warmth. So many people touched by Senator McCain. I think the most remarkable thing in the experience that I've had in the last couple of days is that you talk to people that have lined these parade routes, you talk to people that have lined up to see his casket inside the Capitol Rotunda, and almost all of them have a story, a personal story about John McCain. It may have only been a few moments when they met him and have a chance to connect with him, and yet he left a lasting impression on them because he took that personal interest. It's such a rare quality for so many people to have, especially when you live in public life and it seems like everybody wants a piece of you.
Yep, and he took
Kaylee
the time,
and
he
Steve,
cared, looked people in the eye. Dan?
Just to jump in here, Ernie Calderon with me here sharing some insight about how John McCain may have been instrumental with getting some funding for Sky Harbor early on. Is that the case?
That's the case. When he was a congressman and his first term as a senator, that was when Sky Harbor was really taking off as far as growth goes, and he played an integral part of keeping Sky Harbor in the central part of Phoenix by helping with federal funding, development, and that sort of thing. Sky Harbor displaced a lot of homes, but John McCain also made sure that there was federal funding for relocation and the like.
I also just want to get that comment you made. We were talking off air just a second ago about the sadness and how Senator McCain, perhaps as he saw this, what would be the most touching moment to him right now as we watch them arrive at the airport.
Yeah, I think John would be heartbroken that he would be leaving Arizona for the last time. he was already heartbroken seeing his family cry and mourn. But I think next to that, leaving Arizona for the last time would be something that would be pretty troubling for him.
And this is happening in a matter of moments here as our teams are spread out. Justin Pizzera out reporting live. Now, Justin, what do you see where you are?
Yeah, hey Dan, we just have a few people out here. You can see one person just with an American flag. This is quite different, a different mood out here because this is the final place where Senator McCain will come. He will depart here. We were expecting for him to leave around 12:30 this afternoon. They're running behind schedule. But from here, they're going to go to Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. We do know that there is going to be a brief ceremony here. Here comes the motorcade right now. As you can see, the DPS troopers kind of leading the way as folks putting their hands over their heart and just kind of just soaking this in as this motorcade slowly moves past us. So we just saw Cindy McCain and part of the McCain family just go past us. You have to imagine that this has got to just be incredibly tough on them, just the amount of ceremonies and the amount of things that they are going through. From here, they are going inside Sky Harbor right now for that brief ceremony before they leave for Maryland. And then tomorrow, that is when Senator McCain will lie in state at the Capitol Rotunda. There's also going to be another program tomorrow morning. On Saturday, there's going to be another private memorial at the Washington National Cathedral. And then finally on Sunday, he's going to be buried at the United States Naval Academy, which he graduated from back in 1958. But again, this is just very final. This is the last time that Senator McCain will be leaving Arizona, a place that he has loved so much, a place, the people that he has loved so much, guys.
Justin Pizzera reporting live there again as they arrive at the 161st Air Refueling Wing, appropriately with that wing, that fin you see there with the state flag of the state of Arizona, state he loved so much. And again, Justin kind of alluding to everything that happens from here, both here in the Valley and then, of course, as he will travel back east. I believe we have Faye Fredericks on the phone. Faye is back in the D.C. area for all of these ceremonies that will take place over the next few days. Faye?
Yeah, Dan, we got in yesterday, and certainly when you speak to people in this town, it is a large city, but it is a small community in so many ways. And a lot of people are mourning the passing of John McCain. I mean, from watching the coverage on television here, we have hotel staff that are watching it right alongside us right now. And so many people have been touched by this. We've kind of been going around the community here, the city of Washington, D.C., to some of the tourist hotspots and also to some of the areas that from his offices to some of the other areas that we know he frequented. And to a person, everyone has been incredibly respectful and complimentary of this man's service and service to his country, whatever political persuasion they themselves are from. Justin was talking about it a little bit about what the itinerary holds from here on out. The body of John McCain will be arriving this evening about 7:30 at Joint Base Andrews. It's about 25 minutes outside of the Washington, D.C. area. And then at the U.S. Capitol tomorrow, he will lie in state. A ceremony will get going around 11 a.m. and then at 2 p.m., that will be open to the public for people to pay their respects here in Washington, where he touched so many lives as well. And then, of course, on Saturday, there is that service at the Washington National Cathedral. And then one of the things we've learned since we've been here is that the motorcade will be going by the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, where Cindy McCain is going to stop and lay a wreath. And we were there earlier today. And when you talk to Vietnam-era
Yeah, Faye, we are seeing, I just want to let you know, we are seeing right now the hearse just arrived in front of the plane there. I'm sure, as you said, you're watching it there with folks there in Washington, D.C. We want to get out to Melissa Blasius out at the North Phoenix Baptist Church as well right now, standing by with Kirsten Sinema. Melissa, let's talk about this, what all of these dignitaries and folks from Arizona just experienced with the memorial ceremony.
Well, it's important to say they are dignitaries, but at the same time, they shared a very personal relationship with Senator John McCain. As you mentioned, I am joined here by Congresswoman Kirsten Sinema. And tell me, what really touched your heart about today's service?
Gosh, that introduction got me all emotional again. You know, the entire service was just so beautiful. It was exactly what John would have wanted, a mix of the fun and humorous with the tender, and above all, a deep and abiding patriotism and love for our country. What I really took away from today's service is the reminder to each of us that John's commitment to country over party and to finding the best in each other and working together for the good of our country, that's what's most important.
Tell me a little bit about, do you remember, everybody's got this story like the first time they met Senator McCain. Do you have a first time you met him or a time that will always just stick out in your head?
I don't know that the first time I met him was the most memorable because I was scared, as one often is meeting John McCain. But the memories that I have that are the most important to me are the times that we were able to work together over the last 6 years for Arizona. Senator McCain never cared whether someone was a Democrat or Republican. What he cared about was whether or not you were doing what's right for our state and for our country. And every time that he and I worked together was a joy. It was just a privilege, and I couldn't be prouder of the time that I was able to serve with him.
Thank you. Any thoughts you want to share? Let the family know, Cindy know, as you saw him today?
Well, I saw Cindy yesterday and cried. And what I said to her was that it is an inopportune time for John to leave us because our country needs him so badly right now.
Oh, and I think we'll leave it with that.
Yeah, we are taking a look right now at the pomp and circumstance that goes along with this. They are retrieving now the senator's body from the hearse. This is right in front of the plane that will take him to Washington, D.C. You saw the family standing there again, Cindy McCain with her children. We've got the two sisters. That's an image we saw with Megan and Bridget there. Standing there holding each other as the family again has to go through this emotional time as their father and husband is taken back to Joint Air Base Andrews to continue what is an entire week of honoring the senator for what he did here for the great state of Arizona. As we were watching out there on the tarmac, the 161st Air Refueling Wing there at Sky Harbor, just an appropriate send-off. All of the military there earning it, what we're seeing.
The discipline, I mean, you see the discipline of the military, and remember, John McCain had the opportunity to leave his prisoner of war camp early.
He sure did.
Because of his father's status, but the military discipline was, you do not, you leave in the order you were captured, and he refused to leapfrog over other people because he would only leave in the order he was captured. That was the code, that was a military discipline, and what you're seeing now is a very disciplined honor guard carrying the casket. I think it's a wonderful way. He was probably born into that life, and a wonderful way to leave the life with that military discipline.
It's just a part of the way he lived his life. There was no other way to live. His father and grandfather, Navy admirals, of course his sons carrying on the tradition as well, two serving in the Navy and one in the Marine Corps. Again, I'm sure they had some fun jabs at each other about which branch of the service was the best, as they do. Anybody who's in a military family knows that. But as we watch right here as they move in sync to take the senator's body and board the plane where he will leave Arizona for the final time. Let's watch these images here as the family and those gathered there on the tarmac pay their last respects to the senator. This is certainly a final farewell to someone who spent the better part of their latter half, I suppose you could call John McCain's life, a turning point of his time as a POW in Vietnam. And then he selects Arizona effectively as the place that he wants to make his home and put down roots.
The contrast is wonderful. In his book, he talks about how he has had the most desolate life and the most abundant life. Part of that desolation was those years in that prisoner of war camp. And to be in wonderful, rich Arizona, you know, our state motto is God enriches. Wonderful, rich Arizona, but then to be buried as a military officer, someone who will accept whatever is thrown his way to defend our country. Just a beautiful way to say goodbye.
Hands over their hearts that they honor the senator in his last moments here on Arizona soil, the desert that he loved so much. Again, embodied in that song, Arizona, the mountains, deserts, and streams. Certainly spending his last days along Oak Creek, enjoying the views and the vistas of the Sedona area as well. Senator John McCain leaving his home of Arizona. Let's get back out to Steve, who's with former Arizona Governor Jan Brewer right now, who knew the senator very well. Steve.
Thanks so much, Dan. Here with former Governor Jan Brewer. You were inside the service there, and certainly lots of moments of humor, lots of remembrances there. What do you think John McCain will be remembered for in Arizona? How the history books will view him?
I think they will see and remember him as a great American hero, someone that has fought for America and continued fighting until he passed, and that he was a man of honesty and integrity and a man of faith.
When you look around here and you see all of these different dignitaries, you see Republicans, you see Democrats, you see people of great diversity here. That says a lot about who John McCain was.
Absolutely. He believed in America. He believed in the United States of America, all one. And he didn't draw lines in the sand. He went and he fought for everybody. He worked with everybody. He loved everybody. He got angry at everybody. And he forgave everybody.
Yeah. Certainly, is there somebody that carries the torch for John McCain? Is there a political spirit that carries forward?
It's going to be very, very difficult to find anybody of the magnitude of John McCain. He was an extra special, super kind of person. We were blessed to have him in Arizona, and he chose Arizona to be his home. And it's going to be, he is, I think, almost irreplaceable. There's just nobody that can fulfill what he has done in his lifetime.
Governor Brewer, I thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. And so once again, John McCain certainly bringing people together. We've seen Democrats and Republicans hugging. It's like cats and dogs coming together here. It's really amazing to see all of the different people that come together and say the same things about this man. It really is a remarkable testament to his leadership, Dan.
When you talk about that policy-wise, we were just speaking off camera about how Governor Brewer oftentimes, of course, was the staunch conservative Republican, and yet other times she would vary from some of her colleagues and kind of deviate from that line, much like John McCain as he is boarded right now onto that plane. John McCain, again, saying goodbye in an official capacity here from the state of Arizona. Cindy McCain and her sons, Jimmy and Jack, Megan, boarding right now as they fly back to the nation's capital. There are so many in the nation's capital that wish to bid farewell to John McCain, but of course it had to happen here first. It had to start here in the Valley of the Sun. It had to start in his beloved Arizona. Again, as we watch them board the plane, Ernie, you can't help but just feel that we're losing, again, as they've called him, Arizona's favorite adopted son. But who isn't adopted by Arizona? Some born and raised. I know, like we said, you were born and raised here, generations here, but that's the minority. The majority here have come here and selected to be here from somewhere else and chosen this to be their home.
Truly, the only real Arizonans are the Native American peoples that were here at the beginning. So we're all here due to somebody else's kindness, allowing us to come here. And I think John McCain always knew that. He always knew Arizonans were kind enough to adopt him and to have him here. But candidly, he represented us so long. He's no longer one of the adoptees. He's He's the bloodline in the family.
I think 40 years constitutes okay officially. What do they call common law son, perhaps, if you want to use a legal term there. But a great spokesperson for the state of Arizona as well. You know, we always have our Super Bowls and events and things where we hope the eyes of the nation and the world will look on us favorably. John McCain certainly did his best to become that spokesperson for Arizona as we see them board the plane here at Sky Harbor.
Many of the people boarding the plane are United States senators and people going back home.
Right, this is the official, obviously the official plane taking many dignitaries back to the nation's capital.
Majestic United States paint job. But one of the sad things about this is you're not going to have John McCain walk down the aisle in the plane during the flight with a drink in hand, teasing everybody and getting everybody laughing and joking.
He'll leave that to the family now.
They will miss that.
They'll have to pick up where he left off. Let's get back out to Faye, again in the nation's capital, preparing for what's going to be a very busy next few days. You know, think about that, Faye. Anyone who's gone through a funeral process, boy, just an exhausting process for the family, but one that they know he wanted, and they want to make sure they honor his memory appropriately.
You know, and I think they want to also give back to the country, that they want to give people in different parts of the country the opportunity to say goodbye and to mourn in their own way. So here we have had our opportunity in Arizona to say goodbye as we watch everyone get on board that plane for the flight now back to Washington, D.C. That flight expected to arrive about 7:30 this evening to Joint Base Andrews, about 25 minutes outside the Washington, D.C. area. And then it will be several days of final goodbyes to John McCain and honoring of John McCain and his life and his legacy at Joint Base Andrews this evening, and then at the U.S. Capitol, where he will lie in state tomorrow, a ceremony there at 11 a.m., 2 o'clock opening up to the public, and then Saturday at the Washington National Cathedral with a stop at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, where Cindy McCain is expected to lay a wreath. And we were out there earlier today, and we were talking to some of those Vietnam-era veterans about what John McCain and John McCain's work and his life story has meant to them. And one gentleman in particular told us, and you'll see it in our coverage coming up this evening, but that he was a 19-year-old. He was in the Navy. He was running a 5-man crew, and he distinctly remembers the day John McCain was shot down in Vietnam, because he was also in Vietnam at that time. And he expressed sort of his deep appreciation for all the work that John McCain has done over the years for veterans' benefits and really how the nation views our veterans from that era. And he sort of expressed what it was like coming back to the United States and things that we perhaps don't think about now anymore, about how difficult it was to make that transition.
Faye, I just want to talk about
what his work meant.
Yeah, I just want to talk about what we're seeing on the screen right now. This, as we've been mentioning, the 161st Air Refueling Wing. Both Ernie and I have talked about how we've actually been with this refueling wing. They're stationed there at Sky Harbor, and they've got the job of kind of showing people what they do. It's self-explanatory, the refueling wing of the planes, and we've seen them do that over the White Mountains. Ernie, you said they did it over your hometown of Morenci.
That's right.
A great group here, again, just to show the military culture we have here in the desert, in Arizona.
And they're dressed blues.
They sure are.
If this vision doesn't make you feel proud to be an American, I don't know what will.
Yeah, again, we talked about the Senators' role in keeping Davis-Monthan open with the A-10s down in Tucson. I know for those of us, those watching from the old Pueblo in southern Arizona, of course, DM, so important down there, Luke Air Force Base and the Marine Station in Yuma, all of the military connections that we have in Arizona, certainly bolstered by Senator John McCain. Justin Pizzera out there at Sky Harbor. Justin, just kind of fill us in on what you're seeing, kind of the mood out there right now.
You know, a lot of people, Dan, have been showing up to this specific location because this is pretty much the last place that Senator John McCain will be forever. So they wanted to get that last glimpse of this motorcade driving by. I just talked to a man who took off work today so he could come out and hold that American flag proud as he paid tribute to Senator John McCain. And this right here is a cooling station, is a misting station. But the man behind it wanted to come here and send Senator McCain off with something special. Is that right? This is Tommy.
Yeah, basically what I want to do is give him a cool send-off. We're hot in the desert all the years and everything, and it's a great man. Everyone's heard all the accolades and all that stuff, but it's the least I can do. And I'm a little selfish. I want to be one of the last people to see him leave Arizona.
I was going to say, this specific location, you were very strategic with this because you wanted to be one of the last people, one of the last general public to see him here in Arizona.
That's correct. I've been around the airport and stuff for years, so I knew where the entrance of the National Guard was. And I just wanted to do something for me. And it's a great feeling for me to be able to do something so small for someone who was great.
What are you going to miss most about the senator?
I'm going to miss how everyone was talking at the eulogies, how a funny man was, how he could make stuff lighthearted even in a serious situation, which I've trademarked myself for years of being the guy that lightens everybody up in a serious situation.
You said great people are funny.
Great people, powerful people are the best people to get to know because they're the funniest you'll ever meet.
What did you think of this motorcade going by? Cindy McCain, the McCain family.
Believe it or not, I've seen 5 or 6 of the presidential motorcades leave the airport. To me, this is one of the most special for someone who's quote unquote not the true elite of like the president. So it was overwhelming to me, which I just think is awesome being ex-military myself.
Tommy, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing this tribute out as well. And this is just something that we have seen just throughout the last couple of days, folks coming out here to pay their last respects, any kind of tribute that they possibly can, just honoring Senator John McCain. Dan?
Justin, Tommy is going to need to kind of position that cool truck there for those members of the Arizona Air National Guard out there. It says 96 degrees on our little thermometer there, but out there on the tarmac, my goodness, the radiating heat, you know, they would only do it for something very special and important, and that's what we've got here today, honoring Senator McCain for sure. Ernie, seeing that again, we talked about just the view that it gives Arizonans about the military culture. Again, if you go back to Arlington and the nation's capital, you see the things that they do to honor the Tomb of the Unknowns and those types of things. It's all very exact. It's all very specific and again, very special, for lack of a better word. And so this kind of gives us a little taste of that military tradition.
And a good beauty of this is the people you see there, a lot are citizen soldiers.
Right.
During the day, they do something else. They might work with you during the day, but today they're wearing the uniform. They will do it for events like this, but they will also do it in times of crisis,
right,
to protect us. So this truly is a Norman Rockwell type moment where you can see the majesty of the United States embodied in the people that are standing out on the hot concrete tarmac.
And what a great view here. Again, we know that the senator selected so many elements of this final memorial service, this send-off for himself from Arizona. But look at the view we have there on the right-hand side with the Phoenix skyline, a place he loved so much. You've got Chase Field there, seemingly bidding farewell to the senator. He spent a lot of time there behind home plate. The senator and his wife Cindy cheering on the Diamondbacks. Of course, Luis Gonzalez, Gonzo, a hometown hero here, one of the honorary pallbearers there at the church. It's just a great way, a great visual to kind of encapsulate what John McCain meant to the Valley of the Sun. A senator, yes, but a big fan of all things Arizona as well. Is that what you'll remember about him, Ernie, as well as just the big fan of Arizona?
Truly, he loved Arizona, and he would fight fiercely over how to help Arizona. I think most of his fights inter-party with the Arizona delegation were about how to help us, not necessarily what the goal was. Everybody wanted to help, but how to get there. There was some quote that somebody used that said, a fight, if you miss a fight, you miss the opportunity to fight. And I think John really did love that spirited fight.
Well, the former vice president says so. He said he loved the action right there on the Senate floor. Yeah, and just you have to love the precision here. I can't speak to the punctuality of Senator McCain as a senator, but as a military man, you know, he had to live and die by the clock there. Right. And so they are. We've got about 6.5 minutes until they are supposed to take off, and like clockwork, it looks as though they will be departing Sky Harbor at the 12:30 time to fly back to Joint Air Base Andrews in Maryland.
You know, he was a jokester.
Yeah.
And I'm just waiting for the Navy plane to come by in the background just to show these Air Force folks that he was Navy all the way. Someplace along the line, keep your eye open for something
must happen.
Something Navy out of place.
Sure.
He took great pride in graduating 5th from the bottom of his class. And he worked at that.
The Naval Academy will be his final resting place. Right. Speaking of, let's talk to Faye now, who will be back there in the nation's capital and the surrounding areas to kind of follow along all of these events. Faye, kind of lay it out for us. What specifically will happen now that we bid farewell to the senator here in the desert?
Well, he will be welcomed at Joint Base Andrews. That's in Maryland. It's about 25 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. Plane initially expected to arrive about 7:30 this evening. This is a private arrival ceremony that's going to be happening this evening. Tomorrow, He will lie in state at the U.S. Capitol, and there will be a ceremony here at the Capitol at 11 a.m., and then at 2 p.m., it is going to open to the public, and the public here in Washington, D.C., where he did so much of his work and spent so much of his life outside of Arizona, will be able to say their final goodbyes and pay their final respects to Senator McCain. Saturday morning at 8:30 at the Washington National Cathedral, there's going to be the ceremony there. And then, at 8:30, they'll be leaving for that ceremony. At 10 a.m. is when it's going to be happening. And on the way there, the motorcade is going to be passing the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. There'll be a stop there. Cindy McCain is expected to get out, and there will be a brief ceremony there, we're being told, and she is expected to lay a wreath there at the memorial wall. And then on Sunday, the Naval Academy is where the burial service will be happening. And again, this will be a partially private event that is going to be happening there. And that is where he chose to have his final resting place. And that is the service that is going to be happening on Sunday at the Naval Academy, where, of course, he graduated from. So his life coming full circle in so many ways, and having touched so very, very many people here. You know, Dan, we had an opportunity to go by Senator McCain's office this morning, and there are a few staffers there. Obviously, it's a sad time, and it's sort of a bittersweet time because the office is, still open and available. You can walk in there, and you can see so many of the mementos, so many of the pictures of Arizona, so many of the memorabilia of the sports teams that I know you've been talking about that he loved so very much, and some of the special moments that he's been a part of, the coin flip at the Super Bowl when the Cardinals played in the Super Bowl a few years back. So many, many of those things, a little bit bittersweet. Some of the Senate staffers of the other senators have been sending over flowers. They've been sending over cards of condolence to Senator McCain's staff here in Washington, D.C. So it's been a tough goodbye here as well, and it's touching a lot of people. I mentioned when we talked earlier that even some of the hotel staff here, I mean, people are just lined up in front of television sets watching this coverage and watching this goodbye to this man who has touched the lives of so many people in so many different ways as he says his final goodbye now and leaves Arizona, as you said, for the last time, Dan.
Faye Fredericks reporting for us from the nation's capital, and she'll be there over the course of the next few days as we will be here leading this coverage from Phoenix. Faye, thank you so much for that. Let's get back out to Steve and Kaylee outside the North Phoenix Baptist Church. Guys.
That moment where Cindy turned around and looked at Arizona almost seemingly for one last time with her husband was very powerful as well here in the last 10-20 minutes or so.
Yeah, we've been sitting here thinking about if there was anybody else in public life, anybody else in life, period, who might bring this many people out to remember and to reminisce and to tell such great stories about Senator McCain. And joining us is Glenn Hammer from the Chamber of Commerce. Glenn, can you think of anybody else who would bring Democrats, Republicans, people from all walks of life to remember his?
No, only Senator John McCain. I mean, the world has lost its greatest voice for freedom, and there's no reference point in my lifetime of a human being passing and just bringing people together of all different walks of life, and you could just feel there's something very beautiful in the air. He's bringing back that American spirit, that can-do spirit, and that spirit that we could do things together, whether we're Republicans or Democrats.
We've seen a lot of unification out here. In fact, just moments ago, we had Mark Brnovich here, our Attorney General, and he said, take a look at that, and it was Jan Brewer, our former governor, and Kyrsten Sinema. And seeing those two worlds come together, that is a statement today.
It's a statement, and what's also important is what Senator John McCain represents to all freedom-loving people in the world is the goodness of the United States of America. We're a good people. We're not just a great military power. We're a good people, and what all of us are going to do, particularly in the chamber community, is make sure that we're honoring his legacy on things like trade agreements, bringing countries together through peaceful means.
What did John McCain mean in terms of the business community to Arizona? This is something that you focus your job on?
Well, I used to love saying when I would introduce him that he was the world's most important legislator, and he would get upset because he would say, "Well, you're saying that because I'm not president." He would say that, and he would say a few other things, but it's a family program. What he meant, though, Senator McCain loved this state. So as excited as he would get about these world issues, he would get that excited about fish hatcheries in Lake Havasu or regulatory issues given Arizona's unique climate. But on one area, I don't know how we will replace him. And defense, when you think of the importance of the defense industry to the state, Luke Air Force Base, Yuma Proving Grounds, Davis-Monthan. I mean, for this state's economy, we have lost not just a giant in terms of what he brought policy-wise, but a lot of the state's defense infrastructure was really benefited greatly to have a man of the stature of John McCain as the chair of Senate Armed Services.
A lot of people forget in Arizona, I think, if I'm not mistaken, our greatest export or our #1 export is missiles. Is that correct?
We have our defense industry is top 5 in the country. So yeah, we have. When you take a look at the missiles that are exported, he used to love talking about the Boeing Apache helicopter, which is manufactured in Mesa. So John McCain, through all of his efforts to keep America and the world safe, it was also very good for Arizona's defense and aerospace industry.
Do we keep these bases in John McCain's absence?
I believe we will, but it will be more difficult. It's going to be important to build up that expertise in our congressional delegation when it comes to armed services. But he was really good across the board. He got that jobs and economic growth means prosperity and happiness. So while Senator McCain was outstanding when it came to national defense, he was also very good on meat and potato issues. Good tax policy, good regulatory policy.
Yeah, we saw a lot of that here. You're talking about the economy, you're talking about humanity. I mean, we had Navajo leaders, we had CEOs, CFOs here, we had presidents of professional sports teams. You think about this coming together of all of these people, these powerful people, mixed with everyday people. And you're right, there is a special feeling here.
He understood the importance of civility.
Yes.
He didn't say you're a Republican, you're a Democrat. Everyone felt welcome with Senator McCain, and that's quality we have to get back to for the health of our democracy.
Glenn Hammer, the Chamber of Commerce, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
Just another note on McCain's impact, just incredible to the business community. When we talk about some of these military bases, we talk about hundreds of millions of dollars in economic impact. And when you talk about Davis-Monthan, for instance, in the A-10, this is a plane that's been taken out of service in a lot of other places in the country. They're still training and still flying on it at Davis-Monthan, and Luke Air Force Base getting the F-35 and being the training ground for that after so many years as being the F-16 training ground. Those are important John McCain moves. We hope that the foundation, though, is there, especially with the F-35, so that Luke continues to thrive in the future. He's built the infrastructure to have it here, not just for the base, but having the Goldwater Range down in southwestern Arizona and a place for those pilots to train. They come from all over the world.
We know that Congresswoman Martha McSally has championed the F-35. She speaks openly about her time in Washington and getting behind this effort to keep that happening right here in Arizona.
Yeah, there's certainly lots of lawmakers who do so. I think the difference would be John McCain had 30 years in the Senate, and head of the Senate Armed Services Committee. This was a guy who could pull strings.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we've talked about on a number of areas, but especially when it comes to just legislative clout, having those committee assignments, being able to get legislation on the floor, get it to a floor vote, get it past the Senate, all of these types of things that he was able to do through all of those years of experience. It's tough to imagine that there's anybody who fills those shoes and is able to really start running on day one the way John McCain could.
Special human being.
Indeed. As we continue to watch this ceremony here at Sky Harbor, he is going to be taking off. We understand they're a little bit behind schedule. That was supposed to happen about 12:30 or so. Let's head it over to Melissa Blasius. Melissa, you and I were talking earlier today, and You said John McCain, you haven't covered anybody more than John
Yes.
McCain in your career as a reporter.
Yeah, I'm going to try to say this without crying because it has been an amazing journey I have, like Representative Sinema, who we talked to a few minutes ago, I don't remember the first time I met John McCain, but I'm pretty sure I probably overprepared for the interview. One of the most touching moments, I think, or moments that spoke the most to me about his character and who he is and how he is a survivor was I went to go interview him at his office on Capitol Hill in his Senate building, and we were a little early for the interview. He was a little late. He came rushing in, and then they asked us if the camera was off, and we're like, yeah, it's not on yet. And so then a staffer comes out and they comb his hair so it looked right on TV. Now I actually have seen other people politicians have someone else comb their hair, but the reason that John McCain had someone comb his hair that day was because he literally could not lift his arms above his shoulders due to the torture that he suffered in Vietnam, and so he endured that his entire life and didn't complain, and it was just he just kept going on and pushing, and on top of the severe limits that he had physically, everybody who is his friend that I have ever talked to will say that he is basically the Energizer Bunny. They would go on trips out into the Arizona wilderness, and they would always say Senator McCain was the one who, when everybody else was dog tired, he'd be like, let's just climb this one more hill or this mountain over here, because he was never, ever tired in many people's eyes. He kept up that campaign schedule, and we followed him on his presidential campaign. I was there in New Hampshire in 2007 when he announced that he was going to run for president in 2008, and the number of stops that we did back to back to back, and to go and do that for so many years because he was so passionate and had so much to say and so much to do, and that is really an amazing man that I have witnessed over about 15 years now, guys. And so today is a sad day for so many who knew him, including many of the reporters out here today. Back to you.
And I think that was one of the things that everybody has said about him too. I remember in 2008, right after the Iowa caucuses, which he had sort of written off, he was carrying his own bags. His campaign was running short on money. He was flying on Southwest Airlines. His staff had been reduced considerably. There are probably lots of candidates who would have said, I'm giving it up, I'm cashing it in. He kept going, of course, going on to win New Hampshire. That propelled him into the primaries and into Super Tuesday and eventually getting the nomination. But he was on the ropes, holding up his fist, trying to keep the champ from knocking him out, and he just never, ever gave up.
It's what made him so endearing to us. And, you hear from a lot of reporters. Everybody here in the Valley who's out here today covering this has interviewed John McCain many times, and I have to say he was just so nice to us. I mean, and listen, when you had to hit him with some of the tough questions, you knew he was going to hit back. You knew what you were going to get, and but he always did it. There was just a way about him that you knew it was going to be okay, and you knew that he'd come back again, and we'd be able to ask those questions, and he would answer direct, and it was special. It was a good thing.
Yeah, it was interesting. A lot of people say, well, he was an intimidating guy because he was such a towering figure. But in my occasions in interviewing him, that intimidation washed away immediately, because he'd sort of walk into the room and he'd sort of smirk or shrug or something like that, like, come on, I'm just a guy, I'm just a dude here. And you got that common man feel from him, no matter who he talked to or what you said to him or what you asked him. That intimidation factor was there, I think, for a lot of people because they respected him so much. But when they had a chance to meet him, suddenly they became a friend.
Yes, well, and we saw, we've seen so many people out here sharing those stories. Boy, just taking a look at these live images here at Sky Harbor Airport right now. And
we were talking about the memorial service here too. It felt presidential.
Yes.
It felt like the sort of tribute that we would extend to anybody who has served as the President of the United States. And I think that's fitting, given his service to this country, all that he did for our nation's military, what he sacrificed, risking his life, nearly losing his life in service to his country. It looks and feels very, very presidential, as if we are remembering somebody who led and inspired as much as any president has.
Hey guys, we are just a couple of minutes perhaps away from Wheels Up as the plane is now moving. You see the Air National Guard. They are saluting, they are at attention, and Senator McCain is preparing to leave Arizona for the very last time as he flies to Joint Base Andrews back east. And Ernie, again, this military honor that we've seen here is something, it's something to behold, really.
Oh, it's tremendous, and as the senator would say, it's not for him, it's for us. We're the people that elected him. This is a wonderful honor, but all he wanted to do was serve. And he said he served imperfectly, but then again, all of us are imperfect. But he wanted to be known as someone who served imperfectly, but who served his country. And this is a wonderful way of saying thank you.
And Steve just said it, a presidential, everything about this today with the ceremony, the memorial service, and again, this send-off from Sky Harbor Airport appears presidential, giving the appropriate honor to our state's senior senator who served for so many years and decades here in the desert. As we watch that plane take off, again, a very busy few days ahead for the family and the friends and the loved ones of Senator McCain, but certainly a sad moment for Arizonans who tip their cap to this truly Arizona original as he was adopted by our state so many years ago, as many of us were. We've come to this state looking for a home and found it, and Senator McCain certainly found that and was given that love today. And over the last week, in fact, since he passed away on Saturday, has been given that love from the people of Arizona and from the people of the country and the world. And now to be their time, after we here in Arizona kind of wrap up this portion of this time to honor Senator John McCain. We've heard the word hero tossed around again. As you said, he probably wouldn't be comfortable with that, but he understood what his role meant, what he was, what he symbolized.
I think we all Arizonans believe he's a hero. People who agreed with him, disagreed with him, they know what he had to go through in life. Yes, he had many high peaks, but there were many valleys that he lived in and had to endure, just like all of us. So he did deserve a presidential send-off. Unfortunately, in life, not everybody gets this type of send-off, and they may have earned it. But in this case, thanks be to the United States of America, he gets to have this type of send-off.
And John McCain would have been the first to say, and he did say, he was the luckiest man alive. He felt as though he had gone through hell and back, and that he made it to a position in his life to be grateful every day. Consider that the faith-based words at the end of that service that said he's a free man now, free from the cancer, free from the physical ailments. And now we watch as Senator John McCain is lifting off, leaving Arizona behind to his final resting place. He's selected where he will be at his final resting place at the Naval Academy, which is, you talked about how he was not the top of his class. No. He was not certainly lauded at that time as a naval cadet, perhaps.
Yeah, it was said, a pretty nice situation for a guy who graduated 5th from the bottom of his class.
Right.
Which gives all of us who are at the bottom of our class a hope.
Again,
right?
That's John McCain, right? From a naval pedigree and from a family where so much was expected. Perhaps he thought at the beginning of his naval career, maybe he wouldn't amount to much. And he says he was kind of a jokester and kind of messed around a little bit too much. But there's time for redemption for everyone, I suppose.
And he would want all of us to be laughing about that and celebrating that today. He wanted a celebration, and he deserves it. And we should all hold up something wet to drink today and say thank you, John McCain.
Of course, one of the great spots that he loved was just north of the valley, Cornville, in between Cottonwood and Sedona. People would call that God's country, the gorgeous landscape of the state of Arizona. And he spent the better part of the last year of his life there, again, kind of soaking in those last moments. He wrote a memoir, The Restless Wave, that talked a lot about his philosophy, his campaigns, his ideas on policy. But again, what we got to see today especially was the family and friends element. We got to see, of course, we here at ABC, we watch Meghan McCain. She's part of the ABC family. But again, Cindy McCain, if anyone's ever had a chance to research her and what she has done with her life since pairing up with John McCain, since becoming married, she has done so much humanitarian work all over the world as well, and his sons serving in the military overseas. I mean, just a family of service and a legacy and a tradition that is worth noting here in Arizona, worth remembering. Like you said, the McCain name is going to mean something more than simply politician who once represented the state of Arizona.
And his family has a tradition of service, so you saw young McCains today. We don't know what's in store in the future, but we might see one of these McCains continue the service that their great-grandfather started.
And they may do it because they feel duty-bound to do it. It's something that they feel they can offer to the country as opposed to some sort of personal aggrandizement or some sort of an ego stroke, which politicians all, have some self-serving motives. Certainly, John McCain would have said that as well. But they feel duty to the country. They feel bound to offer something to the country that's given them so much. And John McCain, of course, gave back to Arizona, the state that gave him so much. The plane now taking off right now. Again, as we say, wheels up, when they leave the tarmac, this will be the final time that John McCain will be here in his beloved state of Arizona.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Or hopefully out there's some young woman or some young man at home today, maybe they're sick, not in school, but they're watching this. And hopefully they're going to be inspired by John McCain to enter public service or to help their neighbors. That's what it was all about. Service was what it was all about in his life. And I think if we emulated that, and if our children and grandchildren emulated that, this would be a wonderful dream place.
Arizona is known for its sunsets. You could call this the sunset for Arizona's senior Senator John McCain as he takes off one final time from Sky Harbor Airport. We will remember him fondly, of course, his legacy, what he left us with, of course. Certainly a great thing to remember, Senator John McCain.
It's accelerating.
Senator McCain was fond of the Western culture and the cowboys riding off into the sunset, and as he heads off to the west there, Senator John McCain winging his way from the west back east. He was born in Panama at a naval station. He was held captive in Vietnam, but Arizona has his heart, has his roots, has his legacy, and off he goes. Our coverage will, of course, continue. An emotional morning as we watch the plane take off and head towards our nation's capital from our state capital. Senator John McCain, certainly, there was no doubt he loved the state of Arizona. But an emotional day, his family and friends, many of them coming together to pay tribute, to pay homage at North Phoenix Baptist Church. The service ended around 11:30. There were so many touching moments, though, throughout the morning, including several friends taking the stage to speak about Senator John McCain.
John McCain believed in our Constitution, and he stood up for it. He fought for it every step of the way. So he would not stand by as people tried to trample the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, including the First Amendment. And you know what? He believed in the Declaration of Independence. When we proclaim to the world that every single human being is important, every single human being is precious, every single person in this world has the right to live free. Not because the government says so, but because God gave us that right.
He didn't judge individuals based on the color of their skin, their gender, their backgrounds, their political affiliations, or their bank accounts. He evaluated them on the merits of their character and the contents of their hearts. He judged them on the work they put in and the principles they live by. It was this approach to humanity that made Senator John McCain so respected by countless people around the world, including me.
Now John's going to take his rightful place in a long line of extraordinary leaders in this nation's history, who in their time and in their way stood for freedom and stood for liberty and have made the American story the most improbable and the most hopeful and the most enduring story on earth. I know John said he hoped he played a small part in that story. John, you did much more than that, my friend.
Former Vice President Joe Biden speaking there passionately at times at the memorial service for Senator John McCain. The motorcade, of course, made its way through the city that he loved, through the state capitol, of course, Phoenix, to Sky Harbor Airport. It'll be traveling now to Washington, D.C. You saw the plane just take off for memorials there over the next few days. The plane headed to Joint Air Base Andrews. Again, we just saw wheels up on Senator John McCain's time here in Arizona. It just took off. We will have more coverage throughout the night tonight on ABC 15 Arizona. Stay with us tomorrow morning as well. We'd like to leave you with Amazing Grace, performed by the Brophy Ensemble today as a final farewell to our Senator John McCain.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas great.